Chapter 321. Elder Meng was shocked. When Rong Zhen went to the hunting ground to hunt that high-level fiend, he didn't follow her. In addition, when Rong Zhen fell off the cliff, she didn't see the other party's face clearly, so no one knew what the high-level fiend that hurt her looked like. They originally thought that the matter would be left unsettled, but they didn't expect to encounter it again today. Also, this fiend clearly has a close relationship with Chu Luiyue. Elder Meng made a prompt decision and took out a thumb-sized silver cylinder. That was the special SOS tube used by Country Yao Chen's royal family. As long as force was injected, it would explode immediately. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. She had heard of this before. It was also called a silver fly. Every member of Country Yao Chen's royal family had one, and they wouldn't use it unless it was a critical moment. This also meant that once this thing was activated, it meant that one's life was in danger. The royal family's people could quickly rush over based on the signal sent out by this thing. More importantly, after this silver fly exploded, everyone within a 1-kilometer radius would be stained with a special smell. Those people could use this smell to continue their pursuit. If that was the case, it would unintentionally cause a lot of trouble. Chu Luiyue raised her hand and swiftly threw the dagger out. The dagger was extremely fast and hit Elder Meng's wrist in an instant. The silver fly fell to the ground. Elder Meng panicked and immediately went forward to snatch the silver fly back. Shui Shui raised its claws and waved it harshly. A few sharp rays of light flew out instantly. Elder Meng was shocked and immediately dodged. A red shadow flashed past. The next moment, Dumpling held the silver fly in its mouth and appeared in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue took the silver fly and lightly patted Dumpling's head. "You're smart." Dumpling proudly wagged its tail and then shook its butt at Rong Zhen and Elder Meng with a look of disdain. Elder Meng's heart sank. A powerful high-level fiend, a cunning Chu Luiyue, and a mysterious blood ferret. He and Rong Zhen weren't their opponents at all. Rong Zhen finally realized the danger at this point. Her face turned even paler, and blood kept seeping out of the corner of her mouth. She forced herself to raise her head and look at Chu Luiyue. His arrogant and presumptuous face was now filled with deep fear. However, there was still a trace of resentment in the depths of his eyes. "It's you? It's you? This magical beast was sent by you," she accused in a trembling voice. "It's you? You've long harbored a grudge against me and wanted to kill me to silence me, haven't you?" Chu Luiyue raised his eyebrows. "You're saying Shui Shui is the devil beast that destroyed your essence core? Why are you pretending to be innocent?" Rong Zhen was already on the verge of breaking down. Seeing that Chu Luiyue didn't seem to know anything, she was so angry that her lungs exploded, and she screamed hysterically. "Back then, you purposely sold the hunting ground and then secretly spread the news that there were high-level magical beasts there to lure me over. Then you sent this magical beast to sneak an attack on me, causing me to fall off the cliff. My essence core was destroyed and I was completely crippled. Everything you did was because I humiliated you at the palace banquet back then. You evil woman. The truth is right here. Do you still want to deny it?" Chu Luiyue pondered over Rong Zhen's words and his eyes darkened. Then he looked at Shui Shui who was beside him in deep thought. Shui Shui lowered its head guiltily and stared at its claws. Chu Luiyue asked lightly, "Shui Shui, why are you here? Shui Shui, did you really push her off the cliff back then?" Shui Shui didn't move. "Chem?" Chu Luiyue's voice rose slightly. Shui Shui immediately looked at her. It was just following orders. Chu Luiyue stared at it for a while. After confirming that it wasn't lying, she raised her eyebrows in satisfaction. "Just admit it. I don't like little fellows who lie to me." Shui Shui hurriedly nodded. Dumpling, who was at the side, suddenly froze. She secretly glanced at Chu Luiyue to confirm that she wasn't talking about her. Then she shifted her gaze away. Chu Luiyue's lips suddenly curled up into a smile. "Well done." Shui Shui instantly heaved a sigh of relief. A huge smile appeared on its face and its white teeth were exposed. Rong Zhen was about to die from anger. She really didn't know what Chu Luiyue was doing now. She was clearly the mastermind behind all of this, yet she was still acting here. Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Zhen. She crossed her arms with one hand and played with the dagger that had already flown back with the other. She lazily said, "Rong Zhen, whether you believe it or not, I didn't destroy your pearl of essence. However, I can't be bothered to explain so much to you now. Anyway, in your eyes, I'm already an evil woman. Whatever I do, even if it's killing you, is perfectly normal, right?" Rong Zhen shuddered in fear. "Chu Luiyue, I'm the 4th princess of Country Yao Chen. You dare to kill me? Why wouldn't I dare?" Chu Luiyue interrupted her and surveyed the surroundings. This place is deserted. It's the best place to kill someone. Besides, you guys secretly brought me out. Other than you guys, no one else knows that I'm with you now. Even if they investigate in the future, they won't be able to trace it back to me. Rong Zhen's lips trembled violently, but she couldn't say anything. This was because she knew very well that Chu Luiyue wasn't wrong at all. She looked at Chu Luiyue. That woman was standing there, her posture relaxed and languid, her face full of smiles. However, the cold glint in her eyes was even colder than the glint of the dagger she was playing with. Endless fear surged in Rong Zhen's heart. At this moment, she finally realized that she was a fish on someone's chopping block. Chu Luiyue could really kill her here. Besides, she could definitely do it. Chu Luiyue, please don't kill me. I was blind in the past and offended you. Please don't hold it against me, okay? I can apologize to you. If you want, you can also use a rope to strangle me. I'll bark like a dog for you, okay? Please. Rong Zhen was scared out of her wits. In order to survive, she was willing to give up everything. Chu Luiyue looked at her with interest. He originally thought that Rong Zhen was a spoiled, arrogant, and domineering princess, but now it seemed that she was more flexible than he imagined. However, that was all there was to it. Chu Luiyue smiled. Rong Zhen, you don't have to waste your breath. At this moment, if you were me, would you spare my life? Rong Zhen's voice stopped abruptly. Of course not. There was such a huge conflict between her and Chu Luiyue. If she had the chance to kill Chu Luiyue, she definitely wouldn't hesitate. Chu Luiyue would definitely do the same. Thinking of this, despair gradually filled her eyes. Chu Luiyue raised his chin. Don't worry. Today is a good day for me, so I'll give you a quick death. As she spoke, she pointed the dagger in her hand at Rong Zhen's glabella. Wait. I can tell you a secret about Rong Jin. Digression. The remaining chapters might be slower to update, so let's read them together tonight. Mobile users, please browse and read them. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 322. The sharp dagger dangerously flew over Rong Zhen's head. It then harshly stabbed into the ground beside her. A strand of hair floated down in front of her eyes. Rong Zhen's heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. If I had been any later, I would have really died here today. Chu Luiyue looked at Rong Zhen's pale and shaken face for a while before slowly asking, I have nothing to do with Rong Zhen anymore. I have nothing to do with Rong Jin anymore, and any secrets related to him have nothing to do with me. What makes you think that you can use this secret to exchange for your life? Yes, I definitely can. I promise that you'll definitely be interested in this matter. Rong Zhen was afraid that Chu Luiyue would regret it, so she spoke very quickly. Chu Luiyue raised his brows with interest. Rong Zhen's eyes were filled with panic, but she still spoke to Chu Luiyue confidently. Really? If you really don't care after I say it, it won't be too late to kill me then. In any case, my life and death is in your hands right now, isn't it? Chu Luiyue lifted his chin. Tell me about it. Rong Zhen took a deep breath in and forcefully swallowed the sticky blood that surged up her throat. The smell made her want to vomit, but at this point she definitely didn't dare to do anything she shouldn't do in front of Chu Luiyue. Do you know that father and country Xing Luo wants Situ Xingqian to marry Rong Jin? Hearing Situ Xingqian's name, a dim light flashed across Chu Luiyue's eyes. There weren't any rumors about this before. How did you know? Seeing that Chu Luiyue seemed to be interested in this matter, Rong Zhen secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart and continued speaking. Because I inadvertently heard about this matter from Imperial Mother. However, she and Rong Jin don't know that I know about this. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. In that case, it wasn't impossible. After all, Rong Zhen was the Empress's biological daughter, and she had always been close to Rong Jin. Thus, it wasn't strange for her to hear this. A fair lady is a gentleman's mate. It's Rong Jin's blessing to be able to marry Situ Xingqian. Chu Luiyue said faintly. She said this with sincerity. Even though Situ Xingqian didn't give her a good impression, Situ Xingqian was indeed very outstanding in other aspects. Whether it was appearance or talent, she was one in a million. Even her status was more honorable and stable than Rong Jin's. Even though Rong Jin was the crown prince the moment he was born, his position was already on the brink of collapse after the recent series of setbacks. Emperor Jiawen's patience with him is about to run out. The other princes are also very outstanding and can replace him at any time. For example, the third prince, Rongjiu. That person had always been Rong Jin's formidable opponent even though he had been living in seclusion and had been very quiet. However, Chu Luiyue did not think that a man who had fought on the battlefield in his teens and made outstanding achievements in battle would admit defeat so easily. He was just waiting for the right time. Previously, Rong Jin was suddenly placed under house arrest and stripped of many of his rights. It seemed to have something to do with the third prince. On the other hand, Situ Xingqian was the eldest princess and did not need to fight for the throne. However, she had extremely high prestige and status in country Xingluo, and even those princes couldn't compare to her. The marriage between the two of them was beneficial to Rong Jin. Rong Jin didn't ask to marry Situ Xingqian. This marriage was initiated by country Xingluo. Rong Jin emphasized every word. This really shocked Chu Luiyue. Why? This is the secret I want to tell you. Rong Jin looked at Chu Luiyue nervously. Do you want to hear this secret now? If you want to know, then you have to swear that you won't kill me. You also won't use other means to torture me. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up slightly. Are you negotiating with me? Do you have the right? Rong Jin choked and then gritted her teeth. She gritted her teeth and said, I know I don't. But if you don't agree, then you don't have to do anything. I'll end it myself. Chu Luiyue looked at her nonchalantly. The dagger is beside you. Rong Jin didn't seem to expect Chu Luiyue to give such a straightforward answer, and she couldn't help but be dazed. Why, you don't want to know the reason behind this? There's a huge secret behind this. Chu Luiyue nodded honestly. Of course I want to know. But I hate it when others bargain with me, especially someone like you. As she spoke, she glanced at the sky. If you really want to take action, you better hurry. It's almost evening now. I still have to go back and have dinner with my father. Rong Jin's blood was stuck in her throat, and her face flushed red. She angrily pulled out the dagger and pressed it against her neck. Chu Luiyue, I'm telling you, if you don't listen to this secret, you'll definitely regret it. Chu Luiyue acted as if he didn't hear anything. All right. Even though the dagger is sharp, if you cut it in the wrong spot, it'll take a long time for you to bleed to death. The spot you put it in now is a little low. Go up a little. Rong Jin was so angry that her vision turned black. She was originally injured, and there wasn't a single part of her body that didn't hurt. Now that she heard Chu Luiyue's words, she was about to break down completely. She clenched her teeth and her hands trembled. The scene of her confronting her mother a few days ago suddenly surfaced in her mind. Those ear-piercing words were like a sharp knife that harshly pierced her heart. Despair flashed across Rong Jin's eyes. In the past, she was very talented and was doted on. However, she became a good-for-nothing overnight and she lost everything. But just because she couldn't do anything for Rong Jin, she became a good-for-nothing in her mother's eyes. She became a thorn in her mother's side. Even if she were to die here today, no one would care. Thinking of this, she slowly closed her eyes as a tear rolled down her cheek. Then she waved her wrist. Poof! Just as the dagger was about to cut her artery, a stone suddenly flew out of Chu Luiyue's hand and hit Rong Jin's wrist. Her hand suddenly turned numb, and the dagger deviated from its original direction and fell to the ground. There was a cut on Rong Jin's neck, but luckily, it was very shallow and wouldn't harm her life. She looked at Chu Luiyue dejectedly and hopelessly. What exactly do you want to do? Chu Luiyue looked at her with interest. One had to admit that even though Rong Jin did many evil things and was arrogant and despotic, she was much more courageous than Rong Jin. If Rong Jin was the one facing such a situation, he wouldn't even have the courage to hold a dagger. From this aspect, Rong Jin was still more outstanding than Rong Jin. You can tell me the secret now. Rong Jin was dazed and her eyes were filled with suspicion. Really? Why, you're sure you won't kill me? Chu Luiyue nodded. Of course. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 323. After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, he glanced at Xue Xue beside him. Xue Xue understood and immediately dashed out. Its body was huge and muscular, but its speed was extremely fast, almost like a bolt of silver lightning. The next moment, it rushed in front of Elder Meng. The moment Elder Meng saw it move, he already realized the danger. He moved his feet and turned to run. But after a few steps, a white figure flashed in front of him, and the white lion appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Force gathered in Elder Meng's palm and he hurriedly threw a punch. Longyang punch. Mockery flashed across Xue Xue's icy blue eyes. Then it raised its claws. Swish. Elder Meng's punch was harshly torn apart. Even his hands were bleeding profusely. Elder Meng was pushed back by this strong force and almost fell to the ground. When he finally stabilized himself, he saw the white lion slowly approaching him. Without a second thought, he turned around and fled. Brr. A roar suddenly sounded in the forest. Elder Meng took half a step forward and his body suddenly froze. Then viscous blood flowed out of his ears. Bang. He suddenly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Chu Liyue walked over, not surprised at all. The suppression of a high-level fiend was enough to directly shatter a Stage 5 warrior's organs. She used a tree branch to remove the black cloth on Elder Meng's face, and an old and unfamiliar face appeared in front of her. Chu Liyue raised his brows and looked at Rongzhen. Rongzhen forced herself to calm down and slowly said, "This is Elder Meng. This is Elder Si Meng? He has been secretly protecting me all these years? Someone from the Si family?" "Yes. The Si family doesn't seem to have such an elder, right? He faked his death 20 years ago, but in reality he has been serving Mother all these years." Chu Liyue instantly recalled that the current Empress, Si Huijing, was the Si family head's younger sister. It seems like the Empress and the entire Si family have reservations about His Majesty. No. The rest of the Si family doesn't know about this. Even though Rongzhen hated the Empress, she didn't want to drag the Si family into this. Chu Liyue, 4 villages. You have Si Ming by your side, but what about Rongjin and Rongqi? Rongzhen shook her head. The Imperial Palace is heavily guarded, and Imperial Mother doesn't dare to go too far. In the past, Elder Si Ming mostly protected Rongjin, but ever since I got injured he started following me. Now that Si Ming was dead, the last bit of hope in her heart was completely shattered. As Chu Liyue listened, he took out a jade bottle from his Chengkuan bag and poured something onto Si Ming's body. Rongzhen had already guessed what it was, but she cowered and didn't dare to speak. Sure enough, after a short while, Si Ming's body completely disappeared. Not a single trace was left behind. Rongzhen widened her eyes at this scene and her heart raced. After Chu Liyue settled this problem, he looked at Rongzhen again. Rongzhen seemed to be shocked by her actions and suddenly took a step back. Chu Liyue looked down at her with a smile on her lips. "Okay, now you can start telling me that secret." After carefully instructing Rongjin, the Empress returned to the palace. Too many things had happened today and she was completely exhausted. The palace servants had all heard about what happened at Tianlu Academy and knew that the Empress wasn't in a good mood at this time. Hence they were especially careful. The Empress returned to her room and sat down in front of the dressing table. A face was reflected in the bronze mirror. It was dignified and beautiful, but it was also old and tired. She reached out and slowly brushed past the wrinkles at the corner of her eyes. Even if she took good care of it, it couldn't withstand the corrosion of time. After all, it was different from when she was young. Even she wasn't willing to look at this face, let alone His Majesty. Besides, even if she went back to more than 10 years ago, her face wasn't the one that His Majesty loved the most. Thinking of this, a strong sense of frustration surged in her heart. Bang! She knocked the jewelry box onto the floor. The palace servants serving her at the side immediately knelt down. "Your Majesty, please calm down." The Empress wanted to get angry and kill everyone here. But in the end she held herself back. None of this was important. As long as Rongjin could stabilize his position as the crown prince, there was still hope for everything. She would definitely be the final winner. Thinking of this, she softened her tone. "You don't have to be nervous. This consort was just too tired and made a mistake. Put everything away." "Yes." The palace servants hurriedly picked up the scattered jewelry one by one and put them back into the box. The Empress asked faintly, "How was the 4th princess today?" The palace servant hurriedly said, "Replying to Your Highness, the 4th princess is still in the palace today and is unwilling to come out. The food sent in seems to be useless too." The Empress paused and frowned. After she hit Rongzhen a few days ago, Rongzhen refused to come out. Even though she regretted hitting Rongzhen, she also felt that Rongzhen's temper should change. In this kind of situation, how could she still be arrogant and unbridled? Instead of thinking about how to share Rongjin's and my worries, she only cares about herself. Does she think that she's still the 4th princess that everyone doted on? She originally wanted to give her the cold shoulder for a few days so that she would learn to behave. However, it seemed like it was impossible now. She stood up and said, "I'll go and see her." When the Empress walked to Rongjin's bedroom, it was already evening. When the palace servants saw the Empress, they were all shocked. "Greetings, Your Highness." The Empress looked around and indeed didn't see Rongzhen. "Where's the 4th princess?" "Replying to Your Highness, the 4th princess is still in the room." The Empress was even more displeased. "I'm already here. Rongzhen must have heard me, but she still doesn't come out. She's really spoiled." She restrained her expression and walked straight to the door that was tightly shut. "Jinjin, Mother is here." The room was silent and there was no response. The Empress raised her voice. "Jinjin?" Still no one spoke. The empress lost her patience and ordered the palace servants to open the door forcefully. Then she stepped into it. Rongzhen, you've really gone overboard recently. The empress's remaining words disappeared in her throat. This was because there was no one in the room. She looked around. Zhen. Dead silence. This time the empress finally panicked. She quickly searched the room and finally confirmed that Rongzhen wasn't here. She looked at the palace servants behind her in shock and anger. Where did the fourth princess go? The palace servants were also shocked as they knelt down together. Your Highness, you're wise. The fourth princess has been in her room for the past few days and hasn't come out. Then where is she now? So many people said that Rongzhen didn't go out, so she definitely didn't go out for a simple walk. Why, you really don't know? The empress casually grabbed the teacup beside her and harshly threw it at the palace servants. Hurry and find her for me. If you can't find the fourth princess, you'll all have to hand over your heads. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 324. Yes. The palace servants were also scared out of their wits and hurriedly responded. Just as they were about to leave, the empress said sternly, Also, you can't let others know about this. If it reaches His Majesty's ears, be careful of your lives. Yes. The palace servants hurriedly left. The empress's face was terrifyingly dark as she stood rooted to the ground for a while. Where could Rongzhen go? Her pearl of essence was shattered, and she didn't have any cultivation left. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to avoid so many people and leave silently. Unless, the empress suddenly thought of something and her heart sank. Did Elder Meng leave with Rongzhen? She hurriedly walked back into the house and left the palace servants outside. After confirming that there was no one around, she took out something from her arms. It was a thumb-sized jade seal. She usually used this to contact Elder Meng. She gently twisted the seal. Gotcha. A soft sound was heard. She looked at the bottom of the seal. But to her disappointment, there was no reaction. The empress frowned. Even if Elder Meng left with Rongzhen, he should have received this news. In the past he would respond quickly, but now, she paused for a while and tried again. Still there was no reaction. The empress became increasingly anxious. Elder Meng had been with her for many years, but this had never happened before. This made her feel very uneasy. She couldn't help but size up the room again. Everything was normal except that there was one person missing. The empress felt her head hurt and rubbed her glabella. Where exactly could Rongzhen have gone? There were enough things today, but Rongzhen just had to add to the chaos at this time. If His Majesty finds out, he will blame me even more for not doing my duty as a mother. Our current situation is already difficult enough. What is wrong with Rongzhen? When I find her, I will teach her a lesson no matter what. Bam. All of a sudden, the seal in her hand exploded. The empress was shocked and directly threw it out. The seal that was already broken rolled on the floor and completely disintegrated. Her Majesty? What's wrong? The palace servants outside hurriedly asked when they heard the sound. The empress instinctively shouted. Nothing. Nobody is allowed to come in. As she spoke, she hurriedly walked over and picked up the broken pieces of the seal. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the thing in her hand in disbelief. It took her a long time to recover. This is, Old Meng is dead. Her body trembled uncontrollably with shock and fear. Elder Meng was actually dead. He was a rank 5 warrior. All these years he had done many things for her and had never made a single mistake. How could he suddenly die now? The empress was suddenly stunned. Wait a minute. If it was really Elder Meng who took Zhen out, and now that he was dead, wouldn't Zhen? Thinking of this, she quickly got up. If Zhen was really in danger, she had to send someone to save her as soon as possible. But halfway there she stopped. Telling His Majesty about this was the fastest and most effective way. After all, His Majesty could mobilize too many people. If she blindly sent people to search, who knew when there would be news? But how was she going to explain how Rongzhen left so quietly? Once His Majesty conducts a thorough investigation, he will definitely find Elder Meng. Even if he's already dead. By then, not to mention Rongzhen, she might not even be able to sit on her throne as the empress. She hesitated for a moment and fell into a dilemma. After hesitating for a long time, she finally decided to hide this matter first. If she could find Rongzhen as soon as possible, everyone would be happy. If not, in a life and death situation, Rongzhen would definitely think of ways to protect herself. After all, she still had Silverfly with her. Now, the mother and son pair couldn't create any more trouble. The Chu family. Chu Ning followed the wooden vines to the Chu residence. Standing in front of the door and looking at the very familiar door, he had a lot of thoughts and complicated feelings. He used to be proud of the Chu family and tried his best to give up everything for the Chu family. But in the end, the Chu family only left him with endless painful memories. If it weren't for the family head, he definitely wouldn't step through this door again. The guards standing at the door saw him from afar and immediately bowed respectfully. "Welcome back, eldest young master." They were very attentive and had flattering smiles on their faces. Even when Chu Ning was at his peak, he had never been treated so warmly. However, the smiles on their faces were glaring and even disgusting to Chu Ning. He could still clearly remember how these people had treated him a few months ago. How long had it been and things had become like this? Every dog has its day. He ignored those people and walked straight through the door. Passing through the courtyard, he walked toward the hall. But before he reached the place, he saw that the Chu family had already gathered outside the hall. Seeing his figure appear, someone immediately went up to welcome him. "Big brother. You're finally back." Looking at the smiling man in front of him, Chu Ning knitted his brows. Chu Ji? Chu Ji came from a branch of the Chu family and had always been at odds with him. In the past, when he was in the limelight, Chu Ji was jealous and always felt that he had stolen his reputation and glory. Later on, when he fell from grace, Chu Ji secretly made things difficult for him. Chu Ning's lips curled up into a cold smile. "Chu Ji, it's been a long time since I called you big brother. It seems. You haven't called me that in 10 years, right?" A trace of awkwardness flashed across Chu Ji's face, but he quickly squeezed out an eager smile and pulled Chu Ning's arm with one hand. "Ah, big brother, you still like to joke as before. Please come in. Everyone has been waiting for you for a long time." Chu Ning easily avoided his hand and looked at the crowd in front of him. He quickly looked around and sneered in his heart. Not only Chu Ji but all the important figures of the Chu family were here. Who else could it be but the great elder Chu Shao standing in the middle? However, at this moment, compared to the eager and enthusiastic expressions of the others, his expression was still not good. "We're all family. Why are you standing here? Why aren't you coming in to talk?" Chu Shao said firmly. Chu Ning smiled. To be able to say such words of compromise was probably the biggest concession Chu Shao could make. However, he did not return to the Chu family today to continue looking at Chu Zhao's face. "Great Elder Chu, you seem to have forgotten something. You and I have already completely severed ties with the Chu family. We really can't be considered a family, right?" Chu Zhao's expression turned cold. "How dare you?" Chu Ning placed one hand behind his back and said indifferently. "Great Elder Chu, if you have anything to say, just say it directly. However, this reprimand, forget it." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 325. Just as Chu Shao was about to flare up, the person beside him hurriedly whispered, "First Elder. It wasn't easy for us to invite Chu Ning back. Don't fall out because of an argument. Business is more important. Business is more important." Chu Shao could only suppress the anger in his heart. In any case, the invitation had already been written. It was not a big deal for him to lower his stance now. This was not only for the Chu family but also for himself. Thinking of this, he adjusted his expression and restrained the anger on his face. "You can't say that here. So many people are standing here. What do you think it looks like? Come in first." With that, he turned around and returned to the hall. A small portion of the others followed him in, while the majority of them were still looking at Chu Ning as if waiting for him to move. Chu Ji didn't dare to provoke him again. He only said eagerly from the side, "Big brother, please go first. You're the big brother, so you should naturally go first." Chu Ning glanced at him. There was no embarrassment on Chu Ji's face. Instead, it was filled with excitement and fawning. Seeing that Chu Ning was sizing him up, he quickly said, "Big brother, you haven't been back for a while. You might not be used to it, but don't worry, just tell me if you have any instructions. I'll definitely do it for you." Chu Ning could see the sincerity in his words. Chu Ji really did not hold a grudge over what happened just now. Instead, he was wholeheartedly trying to please him. How ironic. Chu Ning shook his head and walked towards the hall. Seeing him walk in, the others followed him in. Chu Ning was arranged to be the first on the left. Other than the seat of honor where Chu Shao usually sat, this was the most honorable seat. It was even ranked before the other elders of the Chu family. However, Chu Ning could not be bothered with this and sat down. "Since everyone is already in, First Elder, can you speak frankly?" He did not want to waste time here. The longer he stayed with these people, the more unbearable he felt. Therefore, he planned to quickly resolve the matter and return. Chu Xiao was dissatisfied with Chu Ning's attitude, but he knew that now was not the time to be calculative. Hence he said, according to what the patriarch said back then, he should be coming out of seclusion soon. If the patriarch knew about this, he would definitely be very disappointed. So, I've called you here today to discuss what to do about this matter. Chu Ning chuckled, but there was no mirth in her eyes. What else can we do? Since it had already happened, could it be that they were going to pretend that it never happened? When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will personally explain to him. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other. They seemed to have never expected that Chu Ning would actually say this. Chu Ji couldn't help but say, "Big brother, don't you always respect the patriarch the most? Severing your relationship with the Chu clan is equivalent to severing your relationship with the clan head. If the clan head knows about it, he will definitely be very upset." Chu Ning said calmly, "I know. Whether it was in the past or now, my respect for the patriarch has always been the same. But now that things have come to this, no one can turn back. So, no matter how the patriarch views me, I will accept it." "Are you serious?" Even Chu Xiao could not help but ask. Clearly he was extremely shocked by Chu Ning's words. Everyone in the Chu family knew that Chu Ning was a very sentimental person. I thought that bringing up the family head would make him regret his decision back then, but now it seems that it's a little unexpected. Chu Ning nodded. Of course. Every word I said was carefully thought out. The hall fell into an awkward silence. He had already said this, so how could the others say anything? After a long while, Chu Xiao frowned and said, "Chu Ning, since you've already said so, then there's no need for us to be so polite. You should know why I called you back today." Chu Ning's face was sincere. "I'm sorry, I really don't know. Is it to apologize to you, and me, to ease the relationship with us father and daughter, or to beg us to come back? If you don't say it, how can I guess?" Everyone's expression became awkward again. Chu Xiao suppressed his anger. "Chu Ning, don't go overboard." "I really don't know, that's why I asked. Is this considered going overboard?" Chu Ning sneered and swept his gaze across everyone. "You can't be asking me to come back to chat, right? Enough." Chu Xiao felt that these words were very ear-piercing. He finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up angrily and stared at Chu Ning. "Don't you just want us to admit that we want you to come back?" "Not beg," Chu Ning corrected sincerely. Chu Xiao's face kept changing between green and white. "Chu Ning, you're right. Now, the entire Chu family hopes that you and Lu Yu can come back and become a member of the Chu family again." The third elder, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke and looked at Chu Ning kindly. "The Chu family has wronged you and your father, so you can choose whatever you want. If you agree to come back, everyone in the Chu family will be grateful. If you don't, then what happened today never happened." The third elder's words made the Chu family members even more embarrassed. But they had to endure it. After all, someone had to say this. Moreover, they were indeed the ones who were begging. Chu Ning's expression softened a little, and he nodded slightly at the third elder. "Thank you for pointing it out, third elder. My answer is, I don't agree." This answer was also within everyone's expectations, but they had already prepared a lot of persuasive words. "Chu Ning, think about it carefully again. After all, the Chu family is the place where you were born and raised. Don't you have any attachment at all?" "Yes, big brother. If you're still angry about what happened to Chu Yan's family, then it's not worth it. You probably don't know that Lu Yao instigated the Gu family's madam to cause trouble at Tianlu Academy and was taught a lesson by the Gu family's master. And Chu Yan is still lying in bed and can't get up. That couple has caused so much trouble for the Chu family. Now that the Chu family has declined and caused so much trouble, it's really in danger. Chu Ning, are you really going to watch from the sidelines? When the master comes out of seclusion, how are we going to explain to him? If you're still holding a grudge about what happened in the past, then we'll let you take revenge. How about that? Alright, and Lu Yu. We've already locked up all the servants who bullied her in the past. As long as you come back, you can do whatever you want with them." All kinds of voices mixed together, making Chu Ning feel extremely annoyed. He suddenly sneered. "Is that so? If I remember correctly, many of you here have done the same thing, right? If you really want to settle the score, then you can't escape, right?" The hall instantly quieted down. Chu Ning looked at Chu Xiao and said coldly, "For the first one, why don't we start with First Elder Chu? Digression. Tomorrow at noon, please browse and read for mobile users. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 326. Chu Xiao frowned. "Chu Ning, do you know what you're saying?" Chu Ning leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression and a cold gaze. Of course. If you don't accept, then let's end the discussion here. As he spoke, he was about to stand up. Chu Xiao was about to shout angrily, but the person beside him spoke first. Chu Ning, we know that the Chu family wronged you and your daughter first. It's understandable for you to make this request. However, so much time has passed. Are you going to investigate everything one by one? I remember each and every one of them clearly. I won't malign anyone. Chu Ning glanced at the person who spoke. Why don't we start with you? That person was speechless. The entire hall fell into dead silence again. Who knew what Chu Ning would think of to punish and take revenge on them? Only a fool would stand out at this time. However, it was difficult for them to give up just like that. Chu Ning had been promoted to the commander of the Imperial Guards and held great power in his hands. However, this was not the most important thing. The key to the problem was still Chu Luiyue. It would be fine if she was just an ordinary cultivation genius, but she was clearly more outstanding than most people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to take first place twice in the Qingjiao competition. Moreover, she was extremely talented as a celestial physician. From the moment she could refine pills, she was already considered a true celestial physician. One had to know that no one in the Chu family had achieved this in so many years. What made them even more tempted was that Chu Luiyue had a Daijinjiwan meridian and was chosen by Mu Qinghe to cultivate in the Tianling dynasty in the future. What an honor this was. If Chu Luiyue was still a member of the Chu family, then the entire Chu family status would instantly rise. By then, not only would they be able to maintain their position as one of the 4 major families, they might even be able to replace the C family as the number 1 family. How could they give up such a huge temptation in front of them? Big brother, for the sake of the master, why don't we compromise? Chu Ji cautiously said. Chu Ning asked. What do you mean? Chu Ji glanced at Chu Xiao and smiled awkwardly. About that. If we were to count the things that happened in the past one by one, it would be quite troublesome. Why don't we formally apologize to you and Lu Yu and compensate you according to your suggestions? In order to show our sincerity, this matter should start with the great elder. How about it? Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows. Chu Ji, do you want this old man to lower his head and apologize first? Cough cough, Grand Elder, you don't have to be so blunt, except for the patriarch. Right now, you are the most respected person in the Chu clan. Isn't it the most convincing to start with you? Even if it's for the Chu family? Chu Ji lowered his voice when he said the last sentence, but everyone in the hall heard it clearly. Everyone's hesitant and worried expressions quickly dissipated. First Elder, what Chu Ji said makes sense. You have indeed given Chu Ning and his daughter a lot of grievances in the past. It is only right for you to apologize. Yes. You've already written the invitation. Didn't you ask Chu Ning to come back today to discuss a solution? It's best to turn big problems into small ones and small ones into nothing. First Elder, didn't you say that we are all family? Since we are family, it's fine to lower our heads. Chu Xiao was so angry that his face turned green. These people who were usually respectful to him actually sold him out in the blink of an eye in order to establish a relationship with Chu Luiyue. After a long stalemate, Chu Xiao finally said coldly, All right. In that case, this old man will apologize to you. Chu Ning smiled faintly. First Elder, are you apologizing or lecturing people? Chu Xiao choked. The people beside him hurriedly approached and said, First Elder, think about Vice Admiral Mu. The other families didn't have the chance to establish a relationship with him. And the fact that the blood of the Chu family flowed in Chu Luiyue's body was indisputable. As long as they were willing to agree to come back, these small matters wouldn't be a problem at all. Chu Xiao took a deep breath. In the past, this old man did some terrible things and hurt you and your father. Now, I apologize to you, I'm sorry. Chu Xiao's body trembled as he gritted his teeth. It took him a lot of effort to say these words. He was used to being high and mighty in the Chu family. Now that he had to lower his head and apologize to Chu Ning, who he had always disliked, he felt extremely disgusted and broke down in his heart. He would settle this score in the future. The others didn't care about Chu Xiao's emotions at all. They all looked at Chu Ning expectantly. He had apologized and admitted his mistake. Now Chu Ning should agree to return to the Chu family, right? But under their fervent gazes, Chu Ning didn't move. He just looked at Chu Xiao quietly as if he was still waiting for something. There's still you, His voice was cold as he said word by word. Everyone looked at each other. Chu Xiao suddenly came back to his senses. You want this old man to apologize to Chu Luiyue again? Chu Ning nodded as if it was a matter of course. Of course. I am me and you, is you, Besides, she seems to have suffered more grievances than me all these years. Is it so difficult for you to apologize? Chu Xiao was about to go crazy. When did Chu Ning become so difficult to deal with? Then why didn't you say so just now? Chu Ning snorted. His gaze was mocking, but he suddenly stood up. It's so difficult for you to even apologize. I think the so-called compensation is even more illusory. Since you don't have any sincerity, I think there's no need to continue this conversation. He walked out of the hall. When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will naturally explain everything that you and I did. I believe he will understand. As for you, good luck. Wait. Seeing that Chu Ning was really about to leave, Chu Xiao finally threw caution to the wind. As long as Chu Luiyue agrees to return to the Chu family, then this old man will personally apologize to her until she is satisfied. How about it? Chu Ning stood still and a mocking smile appeared on his face. He turned around and looked at Chu Xiao. There's no need. Chu Xiao was stunned. What? Chu Ning laughed softly, but his voice was as cold as ice, chilling to the bottom of one's heart. The Chu family gave birth to me and raised me. If I say that I don't have the slightest bit of nostalgia for the Chu family, it would definitely be a lie. So, whether it's for the sake of the Chu family's nurturing of me in the past, or for the sake of the patriarch who is about to come out of seclusion, I can let bygones be bygones and let bygones be bygones. But you can't. I remember clearly what you did to you and I will never forget it in this lifetime. Even if all of you kneel on the ground and kowtow to apologize, even if you is really willing to forgive you, I can't do it. Digression, slowly updating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 327. With Shue's help, Chu Luiyue rushed home as fast as she could. Fortunately, she arrived before Chu Ning. After about 15 minutes, Chu Ning finally returned. Father, how did it go? Chu Luiyue asked. Chu Ning smiled. It's all settled. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. They invited you back to discuss letting us go back, right? I rejected them. Chu Ning's answer was very straightforward. And I told them that we will never go back. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Then the family head, I went there today because I wanted to make things clear to them. This way if the family head asks, I can give him an explanation. However, from the beginning to the end, I have no intention of forgiving them. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luiyue and sighed softly. Because you are the person I want to protect the most in this world. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed up. She knew how much Chu Ning had compromised for her, so she felt especially grateful and warm. Thank you, father. The next day, Chu Luiyue returned to the academy. The fire caused Joyo Tower to completely disappear. The elders and teachers in the academy were busy dealing with the remaining matters, so most of the students had more free time. When Chu Luiyue went to look for Mu Hongyu, she happened to see Liao Zhongshu. Luyu. Mu Hongyu was very excited when she saw Chu Luiyue. Thank you. I have already written a letter to father. They will send mother here soon. Chu Luiyue was also very happy. That's good. It's just that the journey is bumpy, so mother will have to suffer. Don't worry. Although Imperial concubine mother's health is not suitable for her to move too much recently, when Imperial father heard that you asked for Deputy General Mu's help, he immediately found several powerful elders to think of a way to safely send Imperial concubine mother here. I really don't know how to thank you. Originally, when Mu Hongyu asked Chu Luiyue for help, she didn't have much hope. After all, they were envoys from the Tianling dynasty, and they had distinguished statuses. Even Emperor Jiawen might not be able to invite them, let alone Chu Luiyue. Who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would be the only one chosen, and he even managed to convince Vice Admiral Mu to help. I didn't think that I would have to trouble Vice Admiral Mu to invite someone from the Tianling dynasty over. I really owe you a big favor for this. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up. It's fine. I also want to see what the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty is like. After she died, other than Mu Qinghe, what happened to the others? Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. Yeah. Speaking of celestial physician Luyu, you can actually produce pills now. We didn't know about this before. You hit it too well. Now that Chu Luiyue can produce pills, he can be considered a real celestial physician. In the entire country Yaoqin, there are very few people with such an identity. Besides, Chu Luiyue is still so young. I knew that you were definitely more capable than we thought, but I didn't expect. TSK. Mu Hongyu lightly snorted and glanced at Liao Zhongshu, who was beside her. The red blood goo in your body was cured by Luyu. You must have known about this long ago. Liao Zhongshu smiled helplessly and shook his head. I really didn't know. Unfortunately, the others didn't believe him. Previously, he pretended that the poison was still in his system and was bedridden, so he didn't attend the Qingjiao competition. When he heard that Chu Luiyue actually produced pills and took the first place in the Celestial Physician competition, he was shocked for a long time. Only then did he realize that Chu Luiyue was the person who saved his life. Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose, but she couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She was more interested in something else. Luyu, when will you go to the Tianling dynasty with Vice Admiral Mu? Chu Luiyue shook his head. It's not confirmed yet. He seems to be staying here for a while and he wants to continue observing me. If I can't pass, I still can't go. Ah? So troublesome? Mu Hongyu looked disappointed. I thought you guys would go directly. Chu Luiyue laughed. I'm not in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry, but it's the Tianling dynasty we're talking about. Mu Hongyu held her cheeks with both hands, her eyes full of yearning. Who doesn't want to go to that kind of place? Luyu, don't you think everyone there is a genius? Everything there must be much better than here. Not necessarily, Chu Luiyue said calmly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. How do you know? Chu Luiyue paused and realized that he had said something wrong. Her eyes flickered and she smiled. I guessed. If everything is good, then why did Vice Admiral Mu spend so much effort to come here? Now that you mention it, it does make sense. Mu Hongyu's eyes turned, and she suddenly thought of something. Right. You won first place in the Qingjiao competition and chose to go to Tai Yan Academy's library to read for a month. However, Vice Admiral Mu has already chosen you. Do you still want to go? Although this is an extremely rare opportunity, it's not worth mentioning compared to the Tianling dynasty. Unexpectedly, Chu Luiyue said without hesitation. I'll go. I'm planning to talk to Vice Admiral Mu about this today. What? Mu Hongyu and Liao Zhongshu were shocked. Are you serious? You're really going? Luyu, do you know how many people don't have the opportunity to go to the Tianling dynasty like you? You're actually choosing Tai Yan Academy? Mu Hongyu widened her eyes. She felt that Chu Luiyue's decision was unbelievable. Liao Zhongshu was about to speak, but he suddenly remembered the red blood goo and swallowed his words. Chu Luiyue smiled. I have my own plans. In fact, she did not plan to stay there for a month. As long as there was any movement on Mu Qinghe's side, she could immediately come back. Moreover, although Mu Qinghe did not say it explicitly, based on Chu Luiyue's understanding of him, he should be planning to stay here for a long time. Chu Luiyue did not think that the reason he was staying was because of her. Therefore, this was also something that she was very curious about. Mu Hongyu wanted to say a few more words, but when she saw Chu Luiyue's determined expression, she gave up. All right. When are you going? The people from Tai Yan Academy seem to have left today. Our academy's elders Wu Rong and Elder Wei Cheng from Nanfeng Academy also went. Chu Luiyue understood. This was obviously to investigate Heng Jingchua and the others. She thought for a moment. It won't be too late for me to go after your mother arrives. Mu Hongyu was stunned and her eyes reddened. Luyu, thank you so much. It's nothing. Chu Luiyue's lips curled up slightly. Mu Hongyu suddenly said, Oh, right. After you returned home yesterday, Chu Xianmin looked for you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 328. This surprised Chu Luiyue. She's looking for me? Yes. I don't know what she wants to do. I accidentally passed by your place yesterday and saw her loitering at your door. I went up to ask her what she was doing, but she didn't want to say anything and left in a hurry. Mu Hongyu shrugged and pouted. Maybe she wants to do something to harm you when you're not around. Chu Luiyue squinted her eyes and tapped her fingers on the table. It's indeed strange for Chu Xianmin to take the initiative to look for me. However, if it's because of the person behind red blood goo, it's hard to say. After all, during the Qingjiao competition, she had clearly felt an inexplicable threatening aura. I have a feeling that the other party is targeting me. Then, on Chu Xianmin's side, did Chu Xianmin come to the academy today? She asked. I don't know. She probably came. Are you going to look for her? Mu Hongyu was a little worried. Chu Xianmin was cunning and vengeful. Nothing good would come of her taking the initiative to look for Chu Xianmin. Besides, the crown prince even asked Chu Luiyue to be his wife in front of everyone. This was equivalent to slapping Chu Xianmin in the face. I'm afraid she hates Chu Luiyue to death now. However, after thinking about it, Mu Hongyu felt that her worries were unnecessary. How can Chu Xianmin be Chu Luiyue's match? Okay, go then. I'll go and confirm mother's arrangements after she comes here. Chu Liyue nodded and got ready to leave. Liao Zhongshu also suddenly stood up. Liu, I'm also leaving. Do you still not know where Chu Xianmin lives? Why don't I bring you there? The two of them looked at each other. Chu Liyue nodded. Okay. The two of them walked towards Chu Xianmin's residence. Liao Zhongshu sighed. Liu, I owe you my life. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Chu Liyue looked at him. He had just recovered from a serious illness, and his face was still somewhat pale. However, the expression in his eyes was incomparably sincere. Perhaps I can't help you with anything now, but as long as you say the word, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Chu Liyue looked at him for a while and nodded gently. It's a deal. Liao Zhongshu smiled in relief. The two of them continued to walk forward for a while. Liao Zhongshu stood still and pointed at a certain place ahead. That's where Chu Xianmin lives. Chu Xianmin did not live with others because of her excellent results when she entered the school. I'll wait for you here. Chu Liyue couldn't help but think that Liao Zhongshu was indeed a smart person. He knew what he should do and what he shouldn't do. The smile on her face deepened as she lifted her foot and walked towards that direction. Just as he reached the door was opened from the inside. Chu Xianmin was about to leave when she looked up and saw Chu Liyue. She was shocked. What are you doing here? Chu Liyue sized Chu Xianmin up. It had only been one night, but Chu Xianmin looked a lot more haggard. Even though she used a veil to cover her face, one could still see the faint dark circles under her eyes. Her tired, bloodshot eyes also showed that she was not in a good state. Were you looking for me yesterday? Chu Liyue's question made Chu Xianmin hesitate. And no. Chu Liyue ignored her and walked past her into the room. You only have 15 minutes. Chu Liyue said lightly. Chu Xianmin turned around and felt that the pair of black jade-like eyes seemed to have seen through her. She clenched her teeth, closed the door and turned to face Chu Liyue. Yesterday that person came again. Chu Liyue raised his brows. When? Chu Xianmin shook her head. When I sent the crown prince back yesterday and came back to the academy, he had already been here. I didn't see him. He only left one thing behind. As she spoke, she walked to the table at the side and opened a box. Chu Liyue glanced at it from the corner of his eyes and focused. That's a letter? Chu Xianmin passed the letter to Chu Liyue. It was a letter wrapped in a red envelope. There was a strange picture printed on it and there was a line of words in the middle. To Chu Liyue. The handwriting was strong and smooth. However, Chu Liyue felt a strong murderous intent from it. She did not take the letter. Instead, she looked up at Chu Xianmin. Chu Xianmin immediately said, I promise that I didn't say anything about you. I don't know why he wrote you a letter. I really don't know. She only knew that the other party purposely asked her to pass the letter. It was obvious that he already knew everything that happened here. This was also a warning to her. Ever since she received the letter yesterday, Chu Xianmin had been feeling uneasy and worried. She originally thought that the other party would kill her directly. However, other than the letter, everything else was normal. This made her even more fearful. She did not know when the punishment would befall her. After she saw the letter, she hesitated for a long time before deciding to look for Chu Liyue. However, Chu Liyue was not around. She did not sleep the entire night after she came back. She kept thinking about this matter and hesitating about what she should do. When she faced Chu Liyue's question, she subconsciously denied it because she had already decided to hide the letter. Who knew if this was a test from the other party? However, Chu Liyue was right in front of her. She was terrified and decided to give the letter to her in the end. Chu Liyue took the letter. Chu Xianmin heaved a sigh of relief for some reason. However, she then saw Chu Liyue stand up to leave. She was shocked. Why, you're not going to open it here? Aren't you afraid that I'm lying to you? Chu Liyue glanced at her nonchalantly. She could not be bothered to say that there was half a Xian formation drawn on the letter. This Xian formation's level was so high that even the academy's elders might not be able to use it. Chu Xianmin knew nothing about Xian formations. She could not even tell that it was half a Xian formation. If she wanted to open the letter, she had to fill in the remaining half. Chu Xianmin did not have the chance to do anything even if she wanted to. Moreover, she did not have the guts to do so now. For some reason, Chu Xianmin felt that Chu Liyue did not say a single word and only looked at her quietly. However, she felt that she was very small and laughable. She shut her mouth embarrassedly. Chu Liyue kept the letter and left. Chu Xianmin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly shouted. All right. Since I've been discovered and the letter has been given to you, can you help me get rid of the poison in my body? Whenever she thought of the horrifying scene of the poison acting up, she would have goosebumps all over her body. She would be terrified the entire night. I don't have any value to you now. Why you can let me go? Chu Liwei glanced sideways and glanced at her nonchalantly. You really don't have any value in this aspect, but I still need you to monitor someone. Chu Xianmin was dazed. Who? The Crown Prince Rongjin. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 329. Si Family. Study Room. Si Yi looked at the Empress Si Huijing in shock. You said that Elder Meng is dead and Rongzhen is missing? When did this happen? The Empress knitted her brows tightly. Yesterday. Then why did you only tell me now? When I found out about this, it was already evening. How could I come out then? I even had to beg His Majesty for a long time to come today. The Empress rubbed her temples in frustration. She didn't sleep well last night and she had nightmares. Her head was about to explode today. The Empress had a distinguished status, but she didn't have much freedom. Her every word and action was watched. She told His Majesty that too many things had happened recently and that she was frustrated. Thus, she wanted to go back to the Si family to take a look, so she came out legitimately. Then, His Majesty didn't say anything? Asked Si Yi worriedly. The Empress closed her eyes. His Majesty is angry with Rongjin and he can't be bothered with me. He also wants to take this chance to give us a cold shoulder, so he naturally won't say anything. Si Yi sighed and he couldn't hide his anger. I've heard about everything. Rongjin is too rash. He actually did such a thing. He's too confident in his position as the Crown Prince. Doesn't he know that there are many people in the Imperial City who want to catch him red-handed? The Empress couldn't be bothered to mention Rongjin, but he was her most important son after all, so she had to help him. I've already told him off. He promised that he won't do this again. Si Yi sneered and didn't care. If his promise was useful, he wouldn't have done such a thing. I used to think that Rongjin was petty, but it seems like the problem is more serious than I thought. He's brainless. The Empress glared at him unhappily. Big brother, it's fine if other people say it, but why are you saying it too? You're his uncle. Si Yi wanted to say something, but when he looked up and saw the Empress's haggard face, he paused and swallowed his words. Forget it, let's not talk about him. Rongzhen and Elder Meng's matters are more urgent. What exactly happened? Tell me in detail. The Empress's expression turned solemn, and she immediately recounted what had happened yesterday. So, we can confirm that Elder Meng is dead, and Rongzhen is nowhere to be found? Si Yi asked blankly. The Empress nodded helplessly. In the entire Si family, only eldest brother and I know of Elder Meng's existence. Once His Majesty finds out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Therefore, I didn't dare to make it public and only sent people to search for him in private. We searched for an entire night, but we didn't find any traces of Rongzhen. We didn't even find any useful clues. Si Yi fell into deep thought. Since Senior Meng took her out, they must have left the palace. Have you sent people to search for her favorite places outside the palace? I did, but I still couldn't find him. The Empress sighed. That's why I came here today to ask Big Brother for help. If it doesn't work, we can secretly search the entire imperial capital. Perhaps we can find it. Easy for you to say. Si Yi got up and paced back and forth in frustration with one hand behind his back. Even for the Si family, it's extremely difficult to achieve this. Besides, if we cause too much of a commotion, people will definitely find out. In less than half a day, His Majesty will know what we're doing. Then what can we do? The Empress was also a little anxious. Elder Meng is already dead and Rongzhen is alone outside. We don't even know what's going on. Now that her Pearl of Essence is destroyed, anyone can easily take her life. If His Majesty finds out. Eldest brother, don't you know that the palace will immediately detect the death of every prince and princess? If something happens to Rongzhen, His Majesty will definitely send people to investigate. If that happens, Elder Meng will definitely be implicated. Then it will be the Si family and me. Rongjin's current situation is already bad enough. If this is exposed, it will only make things worse. Rongjin is really too much. She's getting older, but her temper is getting worse by the day. She didn't even think about the consequences of doing this. She'll harm us both. Si Yi glanced at the Empress. Aren't you the one who spoiled Rongjin's temper? Besides, I see that you're so worried about her life not because you're afraid that something will happen to her, but because you're worried that she'll implicate you and Rongjin, right? If not, what can I do? The Empress was exposed, and her embarrassment turned into anger. It wasn't easy for me to fight for the crown prince position. If Rongjin falls, what else do I have to rely on? Rongqi? With his temper, he can't take on any big responsibilities. Rongqi's talent and abilities are average, so he can't be of use. Even if he's already a prince, he can't do anything. They're both princes, but look at Princely Rongxiu. He hasn't been in the imperial city for so many years, but he can still win his majesty's favor by staying at princely mansion all day after coming back. It's really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Siyi waved his hands impatiently. Enough. There's no use saying all this now. We still have to find Rongzhen as soon as possible. As long as we hide it from his majesty, everything will be fine. Alright, do you know why Rongzhen asked Elder Meng to bring her out at this time? How would I know? Halfway through her sentence, a white light flashed across the Empress's heart. Oh. Rongzhen also asked Elder Meng to accompany her out previously. That time, she went to find Chu Luiyue. It was also after that time that Rongzhen often looked at the same drawing repeatedly. She had unintentionally seen it before, and it seemed to be a simple map. Rongzhen had also been talking about finding Chu Luiyue a few days ago. Chu Luiyue. She screamed in shock. Siyi was dazed. What? What has this got to do with Chu Luiyue? Oh, brother, you don't know. Rongzhen's disappearance is most likely related to Chu Luiyue. The Empress clasped her hands nervously and hated herself for not thinking of this earlier. It must be her. It must be her. Other than Chu Luiyue, who else can kill a stage 5 warrior so easily? Perhaps Chu Luiyue herself can't do it, but she has too many secrets and countless tricks up her sleeves. Brother. Quick. Get someone to find Chu Luiyue. Bring her here. Rongzhen must be with her. Siyi couldn't help but frown upon seeing her like this. Calm down. What do you think the Si family is? The Si family isn't the Imperial Guards. How can you casually capture someone? Besides, Chu Luiyue isn't an ordinary person now. Who dares to touch her? If something happens to Chu Luiyue, needless to say, Chuning Tianlu Academy won't let this matter rest. Also, there's Princely Mansion. And the most important one, Mu Qinghe. The Empress bit her lip. Then ask her directly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 330. If Chu Luiyue didn't do it, what will you do? Siyi asked in a low voice. The Empress was stumped. She couldn't think of any rebuttal and could only mutter softly. It must be her. It must be. Other than her, it can't be anyone else. Siyi's head hurt. Jing, listen to me. I know you're anxious about Rongzhen's disappearance, and so am I. But we can't do this. At this time we have to be careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we'll lose everything. The Empress gradually calmed down. What should we do? Should we just sit here and wait? Siyi was silent for a while. I'll send someone to find out about Chu Luiyue's situation and see if there's anything strange. The Empress's eyes lit up. Okay. Isn't Si Ting at Tianlu Academy too? I heard that they're classmates, so they must have some interactions. It's best to let him go. Siyi was a little disgusted. He thought highly of Si Ting and had been grooming him as his successor. This wasn't something to be proud of. Based on Si Ting's personality, he would definitely be unwilling. Also, he wasn't willing to let Si Ting do this either. After the Qingjiao competition, Si Ting accumulated a lot of experience and has been focusing on cultivation. There's no need for him to go. Besides, it's just to find out some information. It's more suitable to let Si Yang go. He's also closer to Chu Luiyue. The Empress disagreed. Si Yang? Would he be able to do it with his jumpy personality? Big brother, this is a small matter, but it's the most important. Big brother, you might not know Chu Luiyue well, but she's very smart. If Si Yang goes, she'll probably realize that something is wrong. Si Ting is mature and cautious. It's better to let him go. Si Ye's face darkened and he didn't say anything. The Empress carefully glanced at him, leaned closer and pleaded in a soft voice, Brother Yi, please forgive me. She pleaded, Big brother, I know you dote on Si Ting the most and I don't want to trouble him because of this. But, there's no other way, right? If you're really unwilling, then I'll find her myself. I've troubled Big brother a lot all these years. I just hope that if anything happens in the future, you and the Si family won't be implicated. As she spoke, 2 streams of tears fell from her face. She was his sister after all, so Si Ye's heart ached for her. Seeing her in such a difficult position, he also felt bad. Then, Big brother, I'll take my leave first. As the Empress spoke, she wiped the tears off her face and got up to leave. Siyi shook his head helplessly. Let Si Ting go. The Empress looked at him with surprise and gratitude, tears welling up in her eyes again. Thank you, big brother. Siyi sighed and patted her shoulder. It hasn't been easy for you in the palace all these years. You've helped the Si family a lot. We are bound together for good or ill. This small matter was nothing. You've been out for long enough today. You should return to the palace as soon as possible. I'll let you know as soon as I have any news. The Empress thanked him a few more times before leaving. Prince Li's mansion. Rong Xiu reclined on the bed with his eyes closed. He stretched out an arm that was riddled with scars. Some of them were so deep that bone could be seen. It was badly mangled and looked extremely terrifying. Umo half knelt by the bed and carefully helped him change his dressing. Seeing the wounds on his master's body, even though he was used to killing, he still felt terrified. He lifted the gauze. Because of the bleeding and pus, a large portion of the gauze had already stuck to the flesh. Umo took a sharp knife and carefully cut away the stuck part. However, some parts of the wound still ruptured unavoidably. Umo quickly looked up at his master and sighed in his heart. Based on his master's abilities, the collapse of Joyo Tower would definitely not pose any threat to him. The reason why he was so severely injured was obviously because his master had done it on purpose. It was obvious who he did it for. Master, how long do you plan to recuperate for this injury? Umo took off the gauze and hesitated in the few bottles at the side. Rong Xiu said lightly, use the gray bottle. Umo paused. Master, the medicine in this bottle is not very effective for your injury. Why don't we use the white bottle? He didn't dare to ask his master to use the gold bottle, which was the best, so he could only settle for the second best. However, that was still much better than the gray one. Rong Xiu ignored his words and asked instead, how's Yanqing doing? Umo immediately replied, after you entered Joyo Tower, Yanqing immediately went there. According to him, he seemed to have made some discoveries. He's on the way back now and should be back today. Rong Xiu grunted lightly. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. The room fell into silence again. Umo hesitated for a moment and said boldly, Master, I know that you don't want to recover too quickly and arouse suspicion, but you have to think about Miss Luyu, right? She knows that you got injured because of her and must feel guilty. Your injury doesn't seem to be getting better day by day. Won't her heart ache every time she sees it? Rong Xiu's fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly. Then he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Umo thoughtfully. His eyes were pure and deep, like the most brilliant and mysterious starry night. It was as if he could see through everything. Suddenly, a cluster of golden flames flashed in the depths of his eyes. Umo's heart skipped a beat. Master? Digression, I've been having nightmares these few days. I dreamed that I was scolded for not updating properly, and even beaten up. I'll try my best not to be beaten up tomorrow at midnight. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 331. That golden light quickly disappeared as if it had never appeared. However, Umo was sure that he had not seen wrongly. His heart trembled as he hurriedly lowered his eyes. Master Yu, Rong Xiu closed his eyes. After a while, he opened them again and regained his usual calmness. Continue. His thin lips gently spat out 2 words. Umo picked up the gray bottle and evenly sprinkled the powder inside on Rong Xiu's wound. The bitter smell of medicine wafted in the air. Umo carefully bandaged his wound with new gauze while feeling conflicted. After he finished treating Rong Xiu's wound and was about to put away the bottles of medicine, he finally could not help but say, Master, you haven't gone back for a long time. Do you want to take this chance to go back? Rong Xiu's expression was calm and he did not say anything. Umo knew that this was a rejection, so he could only leave respectfully. However, when he reached the door, he recalled the golden flame that flashed in Rong Xiu's eyes. He could not help but turn around and plead. Master, are you really not going to reconsider? If Miss Luyu finds out, what has Mu Qinghe done in the past 2 days? Rong Xiu suddenly asked. Umo thought carefully and shook his head. Nothing. Other than the day of the fire at Tianlu Academy's Joyo Tower, he has been staying in his residence for the rest of the time. He has not come out and has not seen anyone. Umo frowned as he spoke. Master, are you going to stay here and watch over Mu Qinghe? Who knows how long Mu Qinghe will stay here for? However, Master's situation does not allow for any delays. Rong Xiu pondered for a moment. You may leave. Carry on as usual. Yes. Umo responded but was still hesitant. Do you want to make arrangements for your return now? Rong Xiu shook his head. I know what to do. Yes. Liao Zhongshu didn't have to wait long before he saw Chu Luiyue walk out of the room. He asked in surprise, so fast? Chu Luiyue smiled. Yes. I found some clues. I'll go back and think about it. You should go back too. Only then was Liao Zhongshu relieved. He bid farewell to Chu Luiyue and left. Chu Luiyue returned to his residence alone. She went up to the second floor, entered her room and locked the doors and windows before taking out the letter. At first glance, this letter was no different from an ordinary letter. However, the complicated Shen formation on it made Chu Luiyue understand that this was a letter that the other party had deliberately sent to target her. She took a deep breath. This Shen formation should be a level 5 Shen formation, but its difficulty could be considered one of the highest. Even a true level 5 mystic cultivator might not be able to successfully fill in the remaining mystic formations. The strength she had shown to the outside world was definitely not at this level, but the other party had sent such a letter. There was only one explanation. The other party firmly believed that she could solve this Shen formation and open this letter. Chu Luiyue's hand that was holding the letter tightened slightly. In this world there were very few people who knew that she had such strength. Then, who was the person who was targeting her and knew her so well? Chu Luiyue had a faint premonition. Perhaps the answer was hidden in this letter. She held her breath and concentrated, beginning to study the Shen formation on the letter. After a moment she picked up a brush from the table and dipped it in ink. Then, she lightly drew a line on the letter and began to fill in the Shen formation. Time passed by minute, and the Shen formation on the letter gradually became complete. Because she didn't add any force and only drew the Shen formation, Chu Luiyue's process of drawing the Shen formation became much simpler. However, even so, this complicated Shen formation still took her a lot of effort. After about an hour, she finally finished drawing the entire Shen formation. When she finished the last stroke, the Shen formation on the letter suddenly lit up. Then, it transformed into countless rays of light and scattered in all directions. Chu Luiyue waited for everything to dissipate before she finally opened the letter. She reached her hand inside intending to take out the letter. When she touched the letter, Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly jumped. Then she almost couldn't wait and unbelievably pulled out the letter. It was a piece of high-quality Shen paper. The texture was soft, glossy like jade, and extremely delicate. However, Chu Luiyue widened her eyes in shock. Because she couldn't be more familiar with this touch. Her hands trembled slightly as she held up the letter. Sunlight shone in from the window and actually penetrated the letter, leaving sand shadows on the ground as bright as the moon. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to have been struck by something. This is the Shen moon paper that was specially used in the Tianling dynasty's palace. It was extremely precious. Not to mention the palace servants, even the ordinary concubines and unfavored princes and princesses were not qualified to use it. The reason why she was familiar with it was because she was very fond of it. Whether it was books, paintings or other things, she used the Shen moon paper the most. Countless guesses appeared in Chu Luiyue's heart in an instant. This Shen moon paper was extremely precious and had always been specially provided in the Tianling dynasty. It was impossible for ordinary people to get their hands on it. To be able to get this Shen moon paper and specially send it to her, she fiercely closed her eyes, trying hard to calm herself down and slowly opened the letter. On the soft and delicate paper, there was only one line of handwriting. Shengguanyu, long time no see. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 332. The sun was shining brightly, and a gentle breeze passed through the wooden window. The room was quiet and peaceful. However, Chu Luiyue seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. The blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment, and her cold limbs seemed to have gone numb. In her mind, it was as if someone had smashed a huge hammer. It was dull and painful. She held the piece of paper. It was light and thin, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She only felt her vision go white, and every word on the paper was like a sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. Shengguanyu, Shengguanyu. This name had been buried deep in her heart, and she didn't even want to mention it in her dreams. Now it had appeared clearly on a piece of moon rice paper. She had always thought that she had hidden it very well and had even deceived Chu Ning, who had been with the original body. However, she didn't expect that someone had already known about it. The other party clearly knew her biggest secret, but she didn't even know who the other party was. Chu Luiyue felt dizzy. She bit the tip of her tongue hard, letting the sharp pain wake her up. She quickly looked around. After confirming that there was no one else around, She heaved a heavy sigh and looked at the letter carefully. There was only one sentence on the paper. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Liwei compared the handwriting of that sentence with the handwriting on the envelope and found that it was indeed written by the same person. If she had seen such strong and vigorous handwriting before, she would definitely remember it. Unfortunately, no matter if it was in her previous life or this life, none of the people she knew had such a handwriting. However, the other party obviously knew her and had a high status. Or rather, they were extremely powerful. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't have been able to obtain the moon rice paper. Chu Liwei stared at the letter and fell into deep thought. Who could it be? Since her rebirth, she had been staying in country Yao Chen's imperial capital. This place was thousands of miles away from the Tianling dynasty, and she had no way of contacting anyone from the past. Moreover, after experiencing the inhumane torture in the imperial ancestral hall, she had already lost her trust in everything in the past. Even Mu Qinghe, whom she had never suspected, had betrayed her, let alone the others. Her rebirth was her biggest secret and also her biggest trump card. She originally thought that she could become stronger step by step, and then go back and take revenge on those people. Take back everything that belonged to him. But now that this letter had suddenly appeared, she suddenly realized that things were developing in a direction that she could not foresee. How have you been? How have you been? Chu Liwei murmured as countless faces flashed through his mind. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite familiar with her. However, she really couldn't figure out who the other party was. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Holding his breath and concentrating, the original spirit looked inside. Inside his dantian, the water droplet quietly floated. Directly below, within the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, a black-colored flame transformed into a legendary three-eyed eagle illusion. It was ferociously staring at the outside of the heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Dumpling? The two fiends were fighting with each other through the transparent heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Judging from the burnt fur on Dumpling's body, they had been fighting for a long time. Chu Liwei couldn't help but hold her forehead. Why are you fighting again? It hasn't even been 2 days since you came out of Jiuyo Tower, and you have already fought 5 times. Haven't you fought enough? Dumpling remained motionless as she stared at the legendary three-eyed eagle opposite her. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, it didn't have a physical body now. Only a soul was left in the karmic fire, and its size was about the same as Dumpling's. The legendary three-eyed eagle's scarlet eyes were indifferent and cold. If it wasn't trapped in the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, it would have long rushed out and killed this reckless thing in front of it 1,000 times. No matter what, it was a renowned paragon back then. Now, it was reduced to fighting with a mere blood ferret. It was really shameless. Looking at the two fiends who were still at daggers drawn, Chu Liwei pondered for a moment, looked at Dumpling and said, "Dumpling, if you continue fighting, I won't stand up for you." Dumpling swung its tail and angrily pulled it up. Chu Liwei then saw that there was a burnt patch on it. "You're not angry because of this, are you?" Dumpling nodded fiercely. "That's it. Its beautiful fur had been destroyed. It had never suffered such grievances before. If it didn't get revenge for this, how could it continue living in this world?" Chu Liwei was speechless as she looked at its angry and self-righteous look. "Isn't this because you provoked it first?" Although she wasn't paying attention to the situation in her dantian, it didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Dumpling choked. A look of mockery flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. "A mere third-grade fiend. Its level isn't high, but it has many problems." Dumpling was instantly enraged. Chu Liwei glanced at the legendary three-eyed eagle indifferently. "You're a divine beast, but aren't you staying here and fighting with a mere third-grade fiend?" The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned and felt extremely embarrassed. It flapped its wings fiercely. If it wasn't trapped by the heavenly square cauldron, it wouldn't have experienced such humiliation. Chu Liwei saw that the two fiends finally stopped fighting, but another question arose in her heart. Dumpling was indeed a third-grade blood ferret. Facing the legendary three-eyed eagle, it should be respectful and fearful. However, the current situation didn't seem to be the case at all. Dumpling didn't seem to be as respectful as other fiends towards fiends that were of a higher grade than itself. It was like this when it faced the black flying python in Wanling Mountain, and it was the same when it faced the legendary three-eyed eagle now. But the key was that the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast. What kind of secret was Dumpling hiding? Chu Liwei looked at Dumpling and pondered for a while. She suddenly said, "I remember that third-grade blood ferrets have the chance to break through and increase their grade. Dumpling, what about you?" Dumpling was still hugging its tail pitifully as if it didn't care about this question. Chu Luiyue thought for a while and felt that there was no point in asking these questions. Dumpling wanted to follow her and she could feel that Dumpling liked and relied on her. Perhaps this was enough. As for those mysteries, perhaps they would be solved in the future. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and looked at the letter in her hands again. After a while, she put the letter away and placed it in her cosmic bag. The C family. Study room. Si Ting looked at Si Yi. His brows were slightly knitted on his cold face, and it was obvious that he didn't agree. You're asking me to find Chu Luiyue to ask about Rong Zhen's whereabouts? Si Yi coughed. I know that you don't like to do these things, but this is very important. I can only rest assured if I leave it to you. Si Ting paused and said coldly, I'm not going. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 333. Si Yi had already expected Si Ting to reject him, so he wasn't surprised and patiently persuaded him. Si Ting, I know that you have dealings with Si Yang and Chu Luiyue. This isn't difficult for you. Master, I can't follow your orders. Si Ting interrupted Si Yi, which was rare of him. Si Yi was stunned for a moment. It was only then that he realized that Si Ting was very resistant to this matter. But this doesn't just involve Rong Zhen. It also involves the Empress and Rong Jin. After all, the Empress is a member of the Si family. If anything happens to them, it will be a huge problem for the Si family. Si Ting glanced at Si Yi and calmly asked, the Empress is the fourth princess. She should immediately inform His Majesty about her disappearance and get the Imperial Guards to look for her. Why would the Empress secretly let the Si family do this? Also, it somehow involves Chu Luiyue? He remembered that Rong Zhen and Chu Luiyue didn't interact much. The only time they met was at Crown Prince Rong Jin's birthday banquet. That time, Rong Zhen purposely humiliated Chu Luiyue in front of everyone, but she was taught a lesson by Chu Luiyue in the end. Perhaps Rong Zhen hated Chu Luiyue from then on. According to her personality, it wasn't surprising that she secretly attacked Chu Luiyue after that. But now that she's missing, what does it have to do with Chu Luiyue? Si Yi was at a loss for words. He couldn't tell Si Ting about Elder Meng's existence. But Si Ting was stubborn. If he wanted to get to the bottom of it, then, these things are very complicated. Anyway, even if it's for the Si family, what can you do by asking? Si Yi's head hurt. As long as you don't let Chu Luiyue find out that you're asking about Rong Zhen, she'll definitely know. Si Ting said resolutely. Chu Luiyue was smarter than expected. Many times, even he couldn't tell what she was thinking. Master, I've been classmates with Chu Luiyue for a few months, so I have some understanding of her. If this matter really had something to do with her, then once I open my mouth, she would definitely be immediately alarmed. On the other hand, if there's no relationship between them, then asking her out of the blue will only arouse her curiosity and suspicion. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, it was useless to get any information from Chu Luiyue. Si Yi leaned back in his chair and fell into deep thought. He knew that Si Ting's words made sense. But other than that, what else could he do? Get someone else to go? He was really worried. Si Ting looked at him with a dark expression. Patriarch. Chu Luiyue has already been selected by Vice Admiral Mu. Do you really want to put the entire Si family in danger for the Empress and the Crown Prince? Si Yi was suddenly shocked. Mu Qinghe was resting in her room. Red Demon stood by the window and groomed its feathers from time to time. The wounds from the previous fight had already healed, but it still felt that it had affected its image, so it had been staying obediently for the time being. It wanted to wait until it was completely healed before going out. Once bitten, twice shy. I've taught you this lesson too many times. If you don't listen, you'll be the one who suffers in the end. Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao and poured herself a cup of tea. Hong Yao pretended not to hear anything. Mu Qinghe looked at the rising white smoke without any expression on his face. You're only a 7th grade fiend now. How dare you fight with a divine beast? Hong Yao froze. It had not revealed anything from the beginning to the end. How did Mu Qinghe know? Mu Qinghe narrowed her eyes when she saw its reaction. It seems like it's true. It had been tricked. Hong Yao suddenly understood and was very annoyed. Mu Qinghe was just guessing and tricking it. Hong Yao glared at Mu Qinghe fiercely. It was always like this. It would betray its master sooner or later. Mu Qinghe picked up the teacup and rubbed it slowly. Divine beast. This place is indeed. His voice was very low and it was almost inaudible. Suddenly Hong Yao felt a familiar aura. Its eyes lit up as it flapped its wings and flew outside. Mu Qinghe looked up slightly and looked at the door with deep meaning. Chu Liwei looked up slightly and looked at the house in front of her. This was Mu Qinghe's residence in the imperial city. There were no guards outside the door, and even the streets beside it were deserted. She didn't meet anyone on her way here. Those who didn't know would find it strange if they came here. However, Mu Qinghe was the one living here, so everything made sense. In the imperial city, there were countless people who wanted to visit Mu Qinghe in order to establish a relationship with him. However, nobody dared to do so. Even Emperor Jiawen didn't dare to disturb him, let alone others. She heard that Emperor Jiawen originally wanted to send a few people to serve Mu Qinghe, but he rejected them all. Hence, there wasn't a single servant inside or outside the house. Mu Qinghe lived here by himself. However, there was a transparent barrier outside the door. From afar, one wouldn't notice anything strange. However, once one got close, they would immediately feel a strong suppression. Chu Liwei was thinking about how to knock on the door when a green figure suddenly flew out from the wall and went straight for her. Hong Yao. Chu Liwei looked shocked, but she thought in her heart, Hong Yao's sensitive sense of smell is still the same as before. It can even tell that it's me from so far away. Hong Yao happily flew in front of Chu Liwei. I was about to die from boredom these 2 days. I didn't expect Chu Liwei to come today. Hong Yao, your master, creak. Before Chu Liwei could finish her sentence, the door suddenly opened from the inside. An entrance appeared above the spirit formation. Hong Yao quickly flapped its wings, urging Chu Liwei to hurry in. Chu Liwei's lips curved up slightly as she walked in. Walking through the front yard and the corridor, Chu Liwei finally came to a room. The door was open and Mu Qinghe was sitting inside drinking tea. Chu Liwei was hesitating whether to speak or not when Mu Qinghe said without raising her head, "Just come in." Chu Liwei followed Hong Yao in. "Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu." After the first time, it was much easier to bow to Mu Qinghe again. Only then did Mu Qinghe look up. "If you feel bored here, then you can go and focus on your cultivation." Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment before realizing that these words were directed at Hong Yao. Red Demon rolled its eyes, unwilling to give up. It had heard this kind of words countless times. If it was in a good mood, it might listen to it. But now she was here. How could it be dismissed like this? Hong Yao landed next to Mu Qinghe's hand and drank tea from her teacup. Half of its head was almost buried in it. After drinking enough, it raised its head and shook its head violently. The tea splashed everywhere. Mu Qinghe gave it a warning look. Chu Liwei suddenly said, "Vice Admiral Mu, I came here today to discuss something with you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 334. Mu Qinghe then looked at Chu Liwei. His voice was as cold and indifferent as ever. "Speak." Hong Yao knew when to stop. It immediately took the opportunity to run and hide behind the window. Chu Liwei glanced at it from the corner of her eye and sighed in her heart. Hong Yao was really troublesome. It knew that Mu Qinghe hated it when people touched his tea, but it still dared to do so. It was really rare for it to survive until now. It was strange. Mu Qinghe came from a humble background. When he was young, he had to snatch rotten buns from beggars and did not have a good day. Later on, when he followed her, his conditions in all aspects improved a lot. However, he was not like other people who had risen from poverty and were passionate about those luxuries. Instead, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and war. Except for one thing, tea. Even she did not know when he fell in love with tea. Not only did he like to drink tea, but he also liked to make tea. Chu Liwei remembered that he had good tea brewing skills. Even the tea masters in the palace might not be comparable to him. She stopped thinking and looked at Mu Qinghe. She briefly told him her plan. "So, I'm here this time to hope that you can approve it. As for the length of time I stay in Taiyan Academy, it's up to you." Mu Qinghe picked up another cup and poured a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Liwei with a scrutinizing gaze. "It seems like you're sure that I won't leave here in the short term. That's why you have the guts to make such a request?" Chu Liwei's smile did not change. "Didn't you say before that you would stay here for a period of time? I don't know how long you're referring to, but I'm here to ask. After all, it's an extremely rare opportunity to borrow books from other academies' libraries for free. I don't want to miss it. Vice Admiral Mu, please understand." Mu Qinghe did not speak for a long time. Other than looking for a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he did have other important things to do this time. It would definitely not end in 3 to 5 days. Chu Liu's request did not seem wrong. "However, you can go if you want, but I have a question that you have to answer honestly." Chu Liu nodded. "Vice Admiral Mu, please speak." Mu Qinghe stared at her. That day in Juyo Tower, Did you get something? Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Then, her eyes widened slightly as if she was surprised and curious. What do you mean? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a deep gaze as if he wanted to expose her lie. His cultivation level was extremely high, so the pressure on his body was also extremely strong. His piercingly cold gaze was almost tangible. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such scrutiny. But Chu Liyue was different. She had met Mu Qinghe when he was at his lowest. She had seen him at his most miserable and pitiful state. She had also given Mu Qinghe a chance to become the youngest deputy general of the Tianling dynasty. She had seen him in his most glorious state. Hence, Mu Qinghe's gaze was completely useless to her. She frowned slightly as if she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head. Vice Admiral Mu, I'm sorry. I really don't know what you're talking about. That day the situation was critical. Prince Li and I escaped with great difficulty. Not only did we not bring anything with us, but we also almost lost our lives there. What exactly do you want to ask? Mu Qinghe looked at the woman in front of him. Intelligent, quick-witted, and a genius. Her expression was so sincere that it even made him wonder if his initial guess was wrong. Chu Liyue pursed her lips hesitantly. Then she asked softly in a probing tone. Vice Admiral Mu? Are you looking for something? Mu Qinghe's gaze sharpened. The aura on his body instantly surged, and it surged toward Chu Liyue. Screech. Hong Yao let out a clear cry. A green flame instantly flew in front of Chu Liyue. It transformed into a barrier. It blocked Mu Qinghe's coercion outside. The two forces fought crazily. Bang. The tea set beside Mu Qinghe's hand shattered. Even the entire set of tables and chairs had many cracks on them. Chu Liyue frowned slightly. She was just asking a probing question. She didn't expect Mu Qinghe to have such a big reaction. This only proved that she was right. But why did Mu Qinghe come all the way here? What exactly is he looking for? The forces of both sides gradually dissipated, leaving the entire room in a mess. Chu Liyue glanced at the broken teacup on the ground. It seemed to be freshly soaked Jinjun Mei. In the past, Mu Qinghe never drank this kind of tea. She retracted her gaze. Vice Admiral Mu, did you misunderstand something? I just wanted to say that very few people set foot on the upper floors of Juyo Tower. Prince Li and I were able to come out safely from the 6th floor thanks to the things his mother left there. If you really want to find something, perhaps Prince Li will have some clues. The murderous intent in Mu Qinghe's eyes gradually faded. No need. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Chu Liyue felt that if this continued, the matter might not be settled. She could only cough to break the deadlock. Vice Admiral Mu, your tea spilled. Why don't I compensate you with a pot of tea? I happened to get a bottle of superior-grade Jinjun Mei some time ago. Although it's definitely not good enough for you, but no need. Mu Qinghe interrupted her and paused for a moment. I'll give you 10 days. Chu Liyue smiled happily. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Although this person's temper became more and more unpredictable, she was still very happy that he was willing to agree to her request. Mu Qinghe looked at the smiling girl in front of him and was momentarily dazed. That pair of bright and pure black jade-like eyes were too similar. They were clearly two different faces, but when they smiled, the expression between their eyebrows was so similar. However, when he took a closer look, he felt that it wasn't the same. There were too many things hidden in Chu Liyue's eyes. That was an expression that only someone who had experienced countless hardships would have. She was different. She was always noble, pure, and clean. Mu Qinghe averted his gaze without batting an eyelid. During this period of time, the number of times he had thought of her was simply too frequent. This was not a good thing. Go back. Remember, you only have 10 days. Chu Liyue noticed that Mu Qinghe's mood seemed to have changed a little, but she knew that it was no good for her to stay, so she happily bowed and left. Hong Yao followed her to the door reluctantly. She had only been here for a short while and she was leaving. Moreover, according to what they said just now, didn't it mean that it would not see her for the remaining 10 days? Chu Liyue walked to the boundary and looked back at Hong Yao, who was reluctant to leave. She leaned closer and whispered, "You're too young. I'll bring you a gift when I come back." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 335. Hong Yao then cheered up again. Chu Liyue stepped out of the barrier and left. Hong Yao watched as her figure disappeared. When it was sure that she had left, it suddenly let out a joyful cry. I finally have a present again. Hong Yao happily returned to the courtyard and saw Mu Qinghe cleaning up the broken teacup. Hong Yao was in a good mood, so it didn't plan to continue arguing with Mu Qinghe. However, it still couldn't help but go over and fly one round around Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe looked up and coldly glanced at Hong Yao. It seems like she knows how to coax you. Hong Yao proudly raised its head. Mu Qinghe said in a low voice, I won't help you in the future. I won't help her for your sake in the future. You're on your own now. Also, I know that you're so close to her because you think that she's similar to her. However, I'm warning you for the last time. It's hard to predict people's hearts in this world. If she knows this, she'll definitely think of ways to make use of you. Don't regret it then. After all, he was Hong Yao's master. How could he not guess Hong Yao's thoughts? From the first time he saw Chu Luiyue until now, there was only one reason why Hong Yao was so close to her. He could tolerate it once, but it didn't mean that he would let people take advantage of him. Hong Yao glanced at him faintly. Ah, stupid human. I wonder who's the one who'll really regret it then. Even though 10 days was relatively short, it already surprised Chu Luiyue. What made her even happier was that Mu Hongyu told her early the next morning that her mother had arrived in the imperial city. This took less time than she expected. The news of Princess Consort Ping Zhang's arrival in the imperial city quickly spread, and Emperor Jiawen specially sent people to welcome her. However, considering that Princess Consort Ping Zhang's health wasn't good, he didn't hold a palace banquet to welcome her. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue went to Prince Ping Zhang's mansion in the imperial city together. I didn't know that your father had a special residence in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu into the strictly guarded Wang Fu and was somewhat surprised. Mu Hongyu giggled. Because my imperial father will come back to the imperial capital for 2 months every 3 years. Therefore, His Majesty specially approved a residence for my father. I came here once when I was a kid. I didn't hear you mention it before. Why didn't you stay here after you entered the academy? Why did you stay in the academy instead? Mu Hongyu made a face. Who wants to live here? With so many people, there were also many rules. It was not convenient at all. It's best to stay in the academy. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Not only was the academy free and convenient, it was also safe. With Mu Hongyu's personality, it was hard for her to imagine living here alone. The two of them walked inside. When he arrived at the backyard, a white-robed old man with white hair was already standing there waiting for him. Upon seeing the old man, Mu Hongyu was overjoyed and rushed forward. Grandpa Wu Shan, you're here too? The wrinkles on Wu Shan's face bloomed like a flower as he chuckled. Young princess, it's been a few months since we last met. This old man misses you dearly. Quick, tell this old man, has the young princess been crying in the past few months? Mu Hongyu couldn't help but pout. Grandpa Wu Shan, we haven't met for so long. Why are you talking about this the moment we meet? I'm already 16 years old. I've stopped crying long ago. Wu Shan's face revealed a trace of surprise. Young princess has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose proudly. Of course. Young princess has really grown up, and she's getting more and more outstanding. If His Highness and Her Highness knew about this, they would be very happy. Wu Shan sighed. Mu Hongyu hurriedly asked. By the way, how is mother now? The smile on Wu Shan's face froze and a trace of worry appeared. Young princess, you should go and see for yourself. Mu Hongyu's heart sank. Could it be that mother's condition is worse than I imagined? That's right. After all, she has been traveling day and night. Perhaps her condition has worsened. I'll go and take a look. Mu Hongyu said as she pulled Chu Luiyue into the house. However, Wu Shan suddenly blocked the two of them and swept his gaze across Chu Luiyue. Look at me. I forgot to introduce her. Grandpa Wu Shan, this is Chu Luiyue. It's all thanks to her that Vice Admiral Mu is willing to help this time. Wu Shan was shocked when he heard the name. He hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands. So it's Miss Chu. Sorry for the disrespect. Although they had just arrived at the capital city, the name Chu Luiyue was very well known. I really don't know how to repay your kindness this time, Wu Shan said with a face of gratitude. Senior Wu Shan, you're too kind. Hongyu and I are friends, so this is what I should do. Chu Luiyue glanced at the anxious Mu Hongyu and smiled. If you don't mind, I would like to visit the princess consort with Hongyu. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Please come in. The princess consort's condition was very serious, but no outsiders knew about it. Wu Shan and the rest were very vigilant along the way. If it were someone else, they would definitely not agree. However, this person was Chu Luiyue, so there was no problem. After all, without her help, the envoy of the Tianling dynasty would not agree to hire a celestial physician to treat the princess consort's illness. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu quickly walked into the house together. Wu Shan stood outside and watched over them. The moment they entered the room, Chu Luiyue saw a woman lying on the bed. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. This must be Mu Hongyu's mother. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale. Her cheeks were sunken, and there was an aura of death between her brows. She looked very haggard. Mu Hongyu's eyes reddened as she rushed to the bedside. Mother. When the princess consort heard the voice, her eyeballs seemed to move and she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim, and she was exhausted as if she had exhausted all her energy. She looked at Mu Hongyu and reached out with difficulty to touch Mu Hongyu's face. She revealed a pale and weak smile as she said in a hoarse voice. Mu Hongyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She immediately lowered her head to wipe them away as if she did not want her mother to see her like this. However, as she held her mother's bony hand, she couldn't stop her tears from rolling down her cheeks. Mother. Why are you like this? Mu Hongyu had left home to study at Tianlu Academy for less than a year. Although her mother's health was not good in the past, she was not like this. The princess consort helped Mu Hongyu wipe her tears slowly, but she quickly lost her strength. Another old man in green standing by the bedside stroked his beard. Young princess, don't worry. Wait for the people from the Tianling dynasty to come. There will definitely be a way. Mu Hongyu knew that this was her only hope now, so she could only nod and swallow her tears. A clear female voice could be heard. May I take the princess consort's pulse first? Digression, 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 336. Everyone in the room looked at Chu Luiyue. Mu Hongyu naturally had no objections and nodded in agreement. Then she looked at Princess Consort Pingjiang and said, Mother, this is Luyu. She's my best friend in Tianlu Academy. Vice Admiral Mu only agreed to help because of her help. Princess Consort Pingjiang looked at Chu Luiyue with a loving gaze. Thank you so much, Mother. Luyu is also a celestial physician. You probably don't know, but she refined a pill during the Qingjiao competition a few days ago. In other words, she's a real celestial physician. Let her take a look at you. She might be able to help. Princess Consort Pingjiang smiled and nodded. I'll listen to you. Just as Chu Luiyue was about to step forward, the green-clothed elder beside her suddenly said, Young princess, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate. Chu Luiyue looked up slightly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. Grandfather Ji Chang, what do you mean? Ji Chang stroked his beard and said earnestly, Don't worry. Young princess, I know you're thinking for the princess consort. However, I'm afraid Miss Chu won't be able to help with this matter. Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and asked, You don't believe me? Do you not trust Luyu? Of course not. Ji Chang shook his head. Miss Chu is very famous and we've all heard of her. To be able to form a pill at such a young age is enough to prove Miss Chu's shocking talent. However, the princess consort has been seriously ill for a long time. Even the top celestial physician in country Yao Chen can't do anything about it, let alone Miss Chu. Why don't we wait for the Tianling dynasty's celestial physician to come before we take a look? Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows in displeasure. Grandfather Ji Chang, I'm just asking Luyu to take my mother's pulse. It's not a big deal. Besides, the celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty hasn't arrived yet, so we can only wait. It won't hurt to let Luyu take a look. Aren't you being a little too cautious? Ji Chang looked a little troubled. Young princess, I didn't mean to stop you, but, Sai, you don't know. Before we came here, His Highness told us to keep the princess's condition a secret. We can't let anyone know about it, so you still don't trust Luyu? Mu Hongyu was really angry this time. She stood up and looked straight at Ji Chang with a solemn expression. Grandfather Ji Chang, Luyu has helped us so much. Why are you still so wary of her? If I can't even trust her, then there's no one I can trust in the capital. You're hurting my heart. Ji Chang didn't seem to expect Mu Hongyu to value Chu Luiyue so much. For a moment he was at a loss. But, His Highness, I'll talk to Father about it. Besides, even if Father is here, he won't be so unreasonable. Mu Hongyu didn't want to talk to him anymore. She turned to look at Chu Luiyue. Luyu, don't take it to heart. Come and take a look at my mother. Ji Chang was a little embarrassed and could only take a step back. Chu Luiyue was deep in thought. This Ji Chang seemed to be especially reluctant to let her touch the princess consort. She walked forward and put her fingers on the princess consort's wrist. Ji Chang looked over. Chu Liyue's expression didn't change. After a while, she let go of her hand. Liu, how's my mother's condition? Can you see anything? Mu Hongyu asked anxiously. Chu Liyue shook her head. The princess consort has been ill for many years and her body is extremely weak. But other than that, there's nothing I can do. Regret surfaced on Mu Hongyu's face. The celestial physician in the past also said the same thing. Moreover, she could clearly feel that her mother's condition was worse than before. Chu Liyue patted her shoulder lightly. Don't worry, the celestial physician in the Tianling dynasty will definitely have a way. Mu Hongyu forced a smile. I hope so. Just as the atmosphere in the room became heavy, Wu Shan's voice suddenly came from outside. So it's Vice Admiral Mu. Sorry for not welcoming you, it's really disrespectful. Hearing the sound, the people in the room all looked outside. Chu Liyue walked to the door and saw Mu Qinghe in the courtyard. Beside him stood a young man in blue. That man looked to be in his 20s and wore a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall and smooth body. He was very tall. Mu Qinghe was a general and was already very tall and strong. But this man standing beside him was a head taller. But what was more eye-catching was that he had a pair of blue eyes. Those eyes were like the purest ice crystals, shining with a cold light. But there was a careless smile on his face, making him look like a demon that looked at the world with a cold smile. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to have been hit by something. How could it be him? Wu Shan was standing in front of Mu Qinghe and Lu Yu, extremely nervous. I'm so sorry. We didn't know Vice Admiral Mu was coming today, so we didn't prepare at all. Wu Shan was secretly ashamed of himself. He was already so old and had seen so much, but he didn't expect to be so nervous in front of these two young men. Actually, he couldn't be blamed. It was mainly because the aura of Mu Qinghe and the young man in blue was too strong, and he couldn't ignore it at all. Just by standing there, he already felt an inexplicable pressure, and even his breathing became a little labored. Mu Qinghe didn't want to waste time and looked up to see Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue went forward in surprise. Vice Admiral Mu. I didn't expect you to come directly. Hongyu and I have just arrived, so please forgive us for not taking care of you well. As she spoke, she walked to Wu Shan. Senior Wu Shan, leave this to me. You can continue to guard the courtyard. Wu Shan instantly heaved a sigh of relief and felt grateful toward Chu Liyue. Okay. I'll leave these two distinguished guests to you. Chu Liyue nodded slightly. Wu Shan hurriedly retreated. It wasn't until he was 10 steps away that he carefully exhaled and calmed his wildly beating heart. The people of the Tianling dynasty were indeed extraordinary. The two of them looked so young, but their strength was far above his. Chu Liyue then looked at the young man in blue beside Mu Qinghe and asked curiously, May I ask if this is the celestial physician you invited? How should I address him? Before Mu Qinghe could speak, the young man in blue spoke first in a languid tone. Jian Fengqi. He had a smile on his face and he looked very friendly and gentle. His blue eyes were even more alluring. However, Chu Liyue's heart was alarmed. Nothing good would come out of this man's smile every time. In the past she had many conflicts with him. She didn't know why Mu Qinghe was so close to him now. Chu Liyue thought about it, but he didn't expect that the person Mu Qinghe invited would be him. Greetings, young Master Jian. Chu Liyue curtsied. Jian Fengqi suddenly leaned closer to Mu Qinghe and laughed softly. Don't you think she looks like someone? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 337. Mu Qinghe glanced at him coldly with a hint of warning. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously and smiled flirtatiously. Even I can see it. Can't you see it? Those eyes are really… Jian Fengqi. Mu Qinghe's voice sounded like it was mixed with ice shards. Jian Fengqi finally restrained himself and shrugged. Okay, I won't say it. Although he was talking to Mu Qinghe, his eyes were fixed on Chu Liyue. To be precise, he was looking at her face. May I know your name? He was tall and handsome, and when his icy eyes stared at a person seriously, it was as if they could transform into a surging sea, bringing with them an ambiguous and affectionate feeling that made people sink into them. Chu Liyue couldn't remember how many girls he had won over with his looks. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knew how flirtatious Jian Fengqi was, but there were still countless girls who flocked to him, just to beg him to look at them a little more. But he had always been in the midst of flowers and never touched a single leaf. Chu Liyue couldn't figure out how he got rid of those girls, and how they didn't complain about him and couldn't forget him. Chu Liyue tried her best to suppress the urge to punch the man in the face, and her lips curled into a perfect polite smile. Chu Liyue. Oh. Jian Fengqi's eyes lit up for a moment, and he glanced at Mu Qinghe meaningfully as he dragged out his words. What a good name. Chu Liyue had always been too lazy to pay attention to him, but now that there was a great disparity between their statuses, she had to accept it. Thank you for your compliment, young Master Jian. Liu can't thank you enough for coming all the way here to help. Jian Fengqi was still smiling, but there was a trace of surprise in his heart. Most women would blush and their hearts would race when they saw him. Even the worst would have a look of admiration in their eyes. But this girl in front of him had never changed her expression since she saw him. This is rare. No wonder he could persuade Mu Qinghe to ask for his help. If there wasn't a special reason, he didn't think that Mu Qinghe would be willing to spend so much effort to invite him over. Not at all. It's my honor to have a beauty's request. Chu Liyue rolled her eyes in her heart. She thought that many things had changed after more than a year. But now, it seemed that Jian Fengqi's coquettishness was still very good. Then, Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this way. Chu Liyue did not want to be entangled with him for too long, so she turned sideways and invited them into the house. Just lead the way, said Liu Yu nodded. Chu Liyue didn't insist and took the lead. Looking at her back view, Jian Fengqi poked Mu Qinghe's arm and lowered his voice. I think I know why you invited me over now. Mu Qinghe's expression was as cold as usual. She looked straight ahead and didn't intend to bother with Jian Fengqi. But Jian Fengqi wasn't bothered by her cold attitude. Instead, the smile on his face became even more arrogant. I didn't say who she looked like just now. Why are you angry? Mu Qinghe paused in her footsteps. If you don't want the 5-colored origin stone, feel free to continue or go back now. The smile on Jian Fengqi's face froze. I was just joking. Why are you so serious? Okay. I promise that I won't mention this again, okay? As he spoke, he lifted his feet and followed her. He thought to himself that this person's temper was getting harder to please. Chu Liyue pretended not to hear what the two were saying. When they reached the door, Mu Hongyu and Ji Chang were already waiting there. Both of them were surprised to see Jian Fengqi so young. Ji Chang was fine, but Mu Hongyu had always been a straightforward person. Can this person do it? Was written all over her face. Jian Fengqi looked at Mu Hongyu with great interest. Miss, you don't seem to trust me very much? Mu Hongyu didn't feel embarrassed and said frankly. I think so. Jian Fengqi was waiting for Mu Hongyu to say a few polite words. He didn't expect her to admit it directly. The teasing words in his throat were suddenly choked. However, since you were invited by Vice Admiral Mu, you must be a very good celestial physician. Jian Fengqi felt a little better. He smiled lazily and wickedly. Miss, next time when you praise someone, don't pause for too long. Mu Hongyu nodded obediently for the sake of the other party's background. However, she was thinking in her heart, why is this man smiling so strangely? Chu Liyue gave a simple introduction to the few of them, then directly led the topic to the princess consort of Pingjiang. Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this is the princess consort of Pingjiang. She is also the person who hopes that young Master Jian can help this time. The princess consort of Pingjiang smiled weakly. I'm really sorry. Both of you have worked hard to come here, but I can't even get out of bed. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes slightly. The princess consort seems to have been poisoned. The princess consort of Pingjiang widened her eyes slightly. Young Master Jian is indeed amazing. You can guess that I've been poisoned without even taking my pulse. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows. If he couldn't even do this, then he would be too useless. Mu Hongyu looked excited. She quickly moved aside and took Jian Fengqi's pulse. Young Master Jian, please. As she spoke, she walked to Chu Liyue's side and whispered. The people of the Tianling dynasty are indeed extraordinary. Celestial physician who has treated my mother in the past has never been able to tell that my mother has been poisoned without taking her pulse. Chu Liyue nodded. Although Jian Fengqi wasn't a good person, he was still skilled. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so presumptuous. Jian Fengqi took out a handkerchief and placed it on the princess consort's wrist before putting his long fingers on it. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but add on. I originally thought that he wasn't a good person, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. Chu Liyue and her looked at each other. She didn't know why, but she felt that Mu Hongyu's words just now seemed to have meant he wasn't a good person. However, seeing that Mu Hongyu wasn't infatuated with Jian Fengqi like other girls, she was greatly relieved. She didn't want Mu Hongyu to provoke this guy. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that they didn't know that although their voices were very soft, he could still hear them clearly, right? Immediately, his expression froze. Everyone in the room was looking at him. Seeing the change in his expression, they all quieted down. Mu Hongyu couldn't hide her worry as she held Chu Liyue's hand. Chu Liyue gently patted the back of her hand. Princess Consort Ping Jiang lay weakly on the bed. Although her eyes were dim and lifeless, there was still a faint trace of hope. Chu Liyue suddenly thought of something. Her gaze turned slightly and looked at Ji Chang, who was standing at the side. At this moment, his hands were crossed in front of him, and his eyes were fixed on Jian Fengqi. He seemed to be particularly nervous. Chu Liyue could even see him licking his cracked lips, looking worried and tense. Jian Fengqi let go of her hand. Ji Chang was the first to speak. Young Master Jian, do you have a way to cure the Princess Consort's poison? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 338. Jian Fengqi pondered for a moment. The poison in the Princess Consort's body seems to be a mixture of several types, and they were administered at different times. Mu Hongyu exclaimed. How could this be? All this time she had thought that the poison in her mother's body was caused by an accident many years ago. She never thought that, mother is what he said true. Mu Hongyu quickly looked at Princess Consort Ping Jiang. Princess Consort Ping Jiang's eyes flashed with bitterness and she smiled bleakly. That's right, Jian Fengqi added. If I'm not wrong, the Princess Consort's body should have suddenly deteriorated in the past 2 months, right? Princess Consort Ping Jiang nodded. That's it. Jian Fengqi stood up. The first few types of poison in the Princess Consort's body had been buried in her body for many years, and had already seeped into her organs. But because they were not highly toxic, they did not cause too serious of a consequence. But recently, someone administered another type of poison, which triggered all the toxins in the Princess Consort's body at the same time. That's why she was defeated like a landslide, resulting in the current situation. Mu Hongyu looked as if she was struck by lightning, and she stared blankly at Jian Fengqi. Then, what should we do now? Can you get rid of all these poisons? Jian Fengqi frowned slightly, and he seemed to be in a difficult position. This is a difficult task. After all, these poisons were administered at different times, and they are of different types. To get rid of all of them, not only do we have to know what these poisons are, but we also have to avoid new problems during the detoxification process. If we're not careful, all our previous efforts will be wasted and even. Jian Fengqi paused. Even if he did not finish the rest of his sentence, everyone knew what he meant. Mu Hongyu was a little absent-minded. Could it be that even the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty could not do anything? Ji Chang heaved a long sigh and his face was full of grief. Young Master Jian, please think of something. The prince and the princess consort are deeply in love, and have supported each other for many years. If the princess consort... Of course. Jian Fengqi suddenly interrupted Ji Chang, and the corner of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Ji Chang was stunned for a moment, and the sorrowful expression on his face instantly froze. You mean, this poison is very difficult to deal with, but I didn't say that I can't deal with it. Jian Fengqi's smile deepened. Everyone finally understood what Jian Fengqi meant. Chu Liyue cursed in his heart. As expected, he was still the same. If he didn't speak like this, it would seem that he couldn't show how powerful he was. However, Jian Fengqi also noticed that something was wrong with Ji Chang. Don't worry, everyone. I will definitely clean up the princess consort's poison and let her recover completely. Chu Liyue's gaze quickly swept across Ji Chang's face before he lowered his eyes. She clearly saw the shock and fear that flashed across Jian Fengqi's eyes when he heard him say that he could cure the princess consort of Pingjiang. It's not hard to understand the shock, but what's with the fear? The fact that he could escort Pingjiang Wangfei all the way to the imperial capital meant that Pingjiang Wangfei trusted him a lot. Moreover, from the way Mu Hongyu addressed him in Wushan, they were also very close to each other. It doesn't make sense that he would be afraid after knowing that Pingjiang Wangfei's body could be cured. Chu Liyue recalled that when she wanted to check Pingjiang Wangfei's pulse, Ji Chang refused several times as if he was afraid of something. Perhaps he had a guilty conscience. Young Master Jian, is what you said true? Can you really cure my mother? Mu Hongyu didn't notice anything unusual, her mind was only filled with Jian Fengqi's words. Jian Fengqi looked at the young girl who rushed to him in a few steps, her almond-shaped eyes shining brightly. His heart skipped a beat and his smile deepened. Of course. I Jian Fengqi always keep my word. If he couldn't solve such a small problem, then he would have wasted all these years. Mu Hongyu was extremely excited. She pounced to the bedside and held Ping Jiang Wangfei's hand. Mother, did you hear that? Your illness will be cured. Ping Jiang Wangfei didn't have any extra strength at this time. She could only smile with a pale face and look at Mu Hongyu. Chu Liwei said, Hong Yao, it seems that the Wangfei needs to rest. Let's go out and talk. Mu Hongyu nodded repeatedly. All right. Then, Mother, you rest here first. I'll come to see you later. Ping Jiang Wangfei nodded reluctantly. I still have to thank young Master Jin and Vice Admiral Mu, and Lu Yu. She finally closed her eyes and rested after saying those words with great difficulty. Chu Liwei and the others walked out. Mu Hongyu just stood up and saw a handkerchief on Ping Jiang Wangfei's wrist. She picked up the handkerchief and shouted at Jian Fengqi, who had already walked to the door. Young Master Jian, your handkerchief. Jian Fengqi paused in his steps and turned around to take a look. Chu Liu's lips moved. She almost directly asked Mu Hongyu to throw the handkerchief away. Jian Fengqi had a problem. He was a celestial physician and often had to take people's pulse. However, every time he examined someone, he would spread a handkerchief like this time and never touch it with his own hands. The material of the handkerchief was extremely precious, but he would only use it once and throw it away. He had been like this since Chu Liwei met him. She didn't know why. Other than that, he had many hobbies that were neither too big nor too small, and he was very persistent. Even when she was the Heavenly Fate Princess, she also felt that this man was very fussy. Unexpectedly, Jian Fengqi stared at Mu Hongyu and didn't ask her to throw the handkerchief away. Instead he laughed. Oh, I almost forgot. As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Hongyu. Chu Liwei looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. What's wrong with him? Jian Fengqi seemed to have noticed something and tilted his head to look at her. Chu Liwei immediately lowered her eyes and continued to walk towards the door. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chu Liwei seemed to dislike him. Even if she always had a polite smile on her face, he still felt that way. And this feeling was inexplicably familiar. He suppressed the thoughts in his heart and reached out to take the handkerchief from Mu Hongyu's hand. The two people's hands touched for a moment. However, he didn't seem to feel it. He bowed slightly with a smile on his face. There was a hint of elegance in his eyes. Thank you, Miss Mu. Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. Young Master Jian, you're welcome. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just let me know. Jian Fengqi looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Mu Hongyu seems a little too innocent. If an ordinary woman was touched like this, even if she wasn't tempted, her face would turn red. However, Mu Hongyu didn't seem to have any reaction at all. Only then did he vaguely realize that the bright light in her almond-shaped eyes was indeed because of her mother's recovery, and not because of him. This made him feel a little conflicted. Why are these two women each weirder than the other? Chu Liwei, who had walked out of the door, waved at Mu Hongyu. Hongyu. Digression? Why is it so long? Because I went to the hospital in between. My body is a little inflamed, but it's not serious. Love Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. Chapter 339. Mu Hongyu responded and immediately walked towards Chu Liwei. She didn't even spare a glance for Jian Fengqi. Jian Fengqi was speechless. What was with this feeling of being ignored and despised? He looked down at the handkerchief and quietly grabbed it in his hand. When he turned around, his expression had already returned to normal. The few of them walked out, leaving only Ji Chang inside. Young princess, the princess consort is weak. Shall I stay here to take care of her? He said to Mu Hongyu. Mu Hongyu thought about it and was about to agree when Chu Liwei suddenly squeezed her hand. Mu Hongyu's mind raced, and she immediately realized something. She hurriedly changed the words she was about to say. But you've been taking care of mother all this time. You must be tired. You should go and rest first. Ji Chang was stunned. Young princess, don't worry. I'm still in good health. As for the princess consort, His Highness entrusted everything to me in Wushan. We naturally don't dare to slack off. If the princess consort, Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian are here, not only is she safe, but even if something happens to the princess consort, they can immediately deal with it. Senior Ji Chang, don't worry too much. Chu Liwei smiled. But, don't tell me you don't trust these two? Chu Liwei said jokingly, but there was a hint of scrutiny in his eyes. I don't dare. Ji Chang's voice lowered. Then, I'll go and rest first. If there's any problem, I'll definitely rush over immediately. Young princess, don't worry too much. Mu Hongyu nodded. Go ahead. We'll be here. Ji Chang had no choice but to turn and leave. Under the pressure of Mu Qinghe and Jian Fengqi, he didn't even look back. When his figure finally disappeared from sight, Mu Hongyu couldn't help but look at Chu Luiyue. Luyu, did you deliberately send Grandpa Ji Chang away? Chu Luiyue asked. Don't you feel that something is wrong? Mu Hongyu thought about it carefully and murmured with uncertainty, I don't think so. But he didn't seem to want to leave just now. Liu, you might not know this, but Grandpa Ji Chang and Grandpa Wu Shan have been with Father since a long time ago. They have been secretly protecting Mother and me all these years. He's probably just worried. Chu Luiyue looked at her quietly. Mu Hongyu's voice gradually became softer, and her expression was somewhat shaken. Hongyu, don't tell me you didn't find it strange. Chu Luiyue said lightly. Mu Hongyu was a straightforward person and wasn't shrewd, but that didn't mean that she was stupid. On the contrary, she was very smart. It was only because she was too close to Ji Chang that she trusted him too much that she couldn't see it clearly for a moment. Mu Hongyu frowned. Of course she could tell that something was wrong. Grandpa Ji Chang seemed to be especially protective of Mother. In the beginning he wasn't willing to let Chu Luiyue take her pulse, and he wasn't willing to leave just now. More importantly, he didn't seem to be as happy as she thought he would be when it came to her mother's recovery. He had followed Father and Mother for so many years, and he had been running around for Mother's illness many times in the past. But now that there was hope, his reaction was a little strange. You mean? Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue with uncertainty. Chu Luiyue chuckled. Just look at the future. However, you have to remember one thing. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, they can still betray you. When that time comes, you might not even know how you died. Mu Qinghe's body suddenly stiffened. Jian Fengqi glanced at Chu Luiyue. Interesting. Of all the people who heard this, it had to be Mu Qinghe. If he hadn't been sure that Chu Luiyue didn't use any disguise technique, he would have suspected that this was deliberately said for Mu Qinghe. That makes sense. Jian Fengqi clapped twice as if he agreed. You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Many things can't be seen from the surface, and sometimes misunderstandings can arise. Don't you think so, Miss Mu? Mu Hongyu blinked and suddenly realized something. This Jian Fengqi seemed to be talking about her. She coughed and finally felt a trace of awkwardness. That's true. Thank you, Luyu and young Master Jian. I will be more careful in the future. Chu Luiyue looked at Jian Fengqi with a natural expression. Young Master Jian, I wonder, how do you plan to treat the princess? No matter what kind of medicine you need, we will definitely get it. Jian Fengqi said leisurely, there are several kinds of poison in her body. It is impossible to remove them all at once. Moreover, her body can't withstand such a heavy dose of medicine. We can only make a decoction and let her take it first and then let her take the antidote pill. How long will it take? Jian Fengqi raised a finger. 1 day is enough. Mu Hongyu was a little shocked. 1 day is enough? This day refers to the day I need to make the decoction and pill, not to let her recover completely. After that, she will need to take the decoction for a month to completely remove the remaining poison. But that is very simple. You just need to find someone to make the decoction according to my prescription. Chu Luiyue thought to herself, as expected. Jian Fengqi had always only taken care of the most important step when treating patients. He was always too lazy to do the rest. He always felt that it was a waste of his talent and energy to do those things. But it was already very good that he was willing to do this step. I heard that Miss Chu is also a celestial physician? And you can already make pills now? Jian Fengqi asked with great interest. Chu Luiyue nodded. It's just luck. You are only 14 this year? Although you are not as good as, but you are not bad. No wonder Mu Qinghe was willing to help you. Chu Luiyue smiled very modestly. Jian Fengqi felt more and more depressed. This Chu Luiyue seemed to be doing everything well, but the emotions in her eyes did not fluctuate. It was as if no matter what he said, it would not affect her. He turned his gaze slightly. Mu Hongyu was staring at the void. Her eyes were wandering, obviously thinking about something. He lost most of his interest and lazily said to Mu Qinghe, I will be refining pills here today. Help me guard. Mu Qinghe said coldly. Impossible. Because there was no need for that. Although Jian Fengqi specialized in celestial physician, his mystic master level was not low. Even if there were any accidents here, he alone would be more than enough to deal with it. Jian Fengqi had already expected this answer, so he did not mind and only shrugged. Then I will go by myself. With that he walked to another room alone. The moment he opened the door, he waved his sleeve and a faint blue barrier appeared behind him. As for his figure, it was immediately concealed. He stepped into the room. At the same time, a cluster of flames suddenly rose from his hand. The square handkerchief instantly dissipated. Digression: small ailments can really kill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 340. After settling Mu Hongyu's matter, Chu Luiyue planned to leave. Mu Hongyu was a little surprised. You're leaving now? Chu Luiyue glanced at Mu Qinghe and smiled. Time is of the essence, so I have to leave quickly. But don't worry, since Vice Admiral Mu and young Master Jian have agreed to help, they will definitely take care of it. If you need any herbs, you can go to Zhenbao Pavilion to look for Second Master Yan. Put all the expenses on my tab. When I return, I will look for him myself. Mu Hongyu shook her head resolutely. No way. You have already helped me a lot, how can I let you spend more? Chu Luiyue thought about it and didn't insist. Then tell him to give me face and ask him to help you. He will help you gather the herbs you need. The poison in Princess Consort Pingzhang's body was indeed difficult to detoxify, but with Jian Fengqi's strength, it wasn't a problem. It was just that he might need a few special herbs. It might not be easy to find them in the capital, but Zhenbao Pavilion would definitely have them. If Mu Hongyu went by herself, Second Master Yan might not be willing to take them out. That was why she asked Mu Hongyu to mention herself. In this way, Second Master Yan would most likely be willing to help. Chu Luiyue didn't tell Mu Hongyu the details. But Mu Hongyu was extremely intelligent. She had already guessed something and wanted to say a lot of things, but when they reached her mouth they seemed to be stuck. In the end she only said one sentence. Luyu, thank you. Chu Luiyue nodded. Although she didn't get along with Jian Fengqi and didn't like him, he was indeed a man of his words. If he said that he would refine pills here to help Princess Consort Pingzhang, then he would definitely do it. Mu Hongyu's face was full of reluctance. Chu Luiyue wanted to remind her to be careful of Jian Fengqi, but she felt that it was unnecessary. Mu Hongyu was an iron tree and would only be Jian Fengqi's nemesis. Chu Luiyue looked at Mu Qinghe and asked with a smile, Vice Admiral Mu, do you want to stay here or? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything and left. Mu Hongyu leaned in and whispered. Lu, don't you think Vice Admiral Mu's expression is a little bit bad? Chu Luiyue lightly said, Oh? I don't think so. Really? Just now, for some reason, his expression suddenly changed. Although he didn't expression of his expression, but, Mu Hongyu frowned and couldn't think of how to describe it. In short, he just felt bad as if he thought of something bad. I haven't seen his expression like that. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. I didn't notice. If possible, she wanted to chase after him and ask him face to face what was wrong. Was he upset? Or embarrassed? All she did was say betrayal. What was he thinking? In the past year or so, when had he ever thought about anything related to her? Chu Luiyue took a deep breath. She suddenly wanted to know what expression Mu Qinghe would have if he knew that she was her? And those people, Luyu? Mu Hongyu suddenly felt that Chu Luiyue's aura had turned cold, and it was shrouded in a strong sense of loneliness and despair. She felt uneasy and hurriedly spoke. Chu Luiyue came back to her senses and saw her worried face. Are you okay? The aura on Chu Luiyue's body quickly dissipated, and a faint smile appeared on her lips. I'm fine. Those people should be the ones who are not fine. Mu Qinghe returned to his house. It was rare for him to be in a trance and his heart felt like it was blocked by something. It was very uncomfortable. He closed his eyes and tried to calm himself down, but Chu Luiyue's words kept echoing in his mind like the most profound curse. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, there is a possibility that they will betray you. When that time comes, you may not even know how you died. The woman's clear and gentle voice rang in his ears again and again. This is not right. This is not right. Mu Qinghe barely found a trace of rationality. He sat on the chair and habitually wanted to make himself a cup of tea. Every time he was upset, he would do this to calm himself down. However, when he poured the tea, he stared at the teacup and could not help but think of something. Everyone thought that he loved tea, but in fact that was not the case. It was just that making tea could always calm him down. In the past, a burning pain came and he immediately woke up. Only then did he realize that because he was absent-minded, the hot tea had spilled on his hand. He closed his eyes fiercely and angrily swept the tea set to the ground. Crash. A crisp cracking sound echoed in the room, making it seem especially empty. Hong Yao, who was standing on the windowsill, looked back at him and lazily buried its head in its wings. A sharp pain suddenly came from his heart. Mu Qinghe's expression changed. He suddenly covered his chest with one hand and gasped for breath. Immediately he took out a diamond-shaped bronze mirror with difficulty. Hong Yao did not move, but its body tensed up. The next moment, a dazzling light suddenly flashed on the bronze mirror. In the room, an invisible pressure suddenly descended. On the bronze mirror, the light gradually dissipated, and a scarlet sea appeared. A voice came out from it. Mu Qinghe, it's been so long. Why haven't you made any progress on what I asked you to do? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 341. It was a young man's voice. It was low and indifferent, but there was a hint of coldness in it that made one fearful. Mu Qinghe endured the pain in his heart and gritted his teeth. Don't worry, master. I'll do it as soon as possible. You don't have much time left. The seawater in the bronze mirror seemed to be rippling, and the thick smell of blood was suffocating. Everyone else thinks that you went to look for the Daijing Yuan meridian, but this reason can't be delayed for too long. If you can't do it as soon as possible, then you don't have to come back in the future. Because of the pain, Mu Qinghe's lips turned even paler. I understand. The blood-red seawater gradually dissipated, and a white light enveloped it. After a while, the bronze mirror returned to normal. Mu Qinghe then felt that the pain in his body seemed to have lessened. He closed his eyes, put away the bronze mirror, and leaned against the chair dejectedly. Hong Yao, who was standing by the window, suddenly flew over and landed on his shoulder. Mu Qinghe opened his eyes and glanced at it. Hong Yao inched closer and rubbed against his face. Mu Qinghe was silent for a long time before saying softly, "Don't worry. It won't take long." Chu Luiyue returned to the academy and told Yi Zhiding about her plans to go to Taiyan Academy. Although Yi Zhiding was reluctant, he knew that this was an excellent opportunity. It would be a pity to give it up. In the end, he decided to send Chu Luiyue to Taiyan Academy personally. If it weren't for the fact that the academy still had to deal with Jiuyou Tower, he even wanted to go there and accompany Chu Luiyue before bringing her back. Chu Luiyue repeatedly said that she would only stay there for 10 days and would be back soon. Yi Zhiding was finally relieved. The master and disciple pair packed up and headed there together. Country Xingluo Taiyan Academy. After the Qingjiao competition ended, Qing Han and the elders had already brought the students back. Because they didn't get good results, the atmosphere in the entire academy was heavy and stifling. Since Heng Jingshua had used the red blood goo during the Qingjiao competition, the other two academies had also sent their elders to Taiyan Academy to investigate. Everyone who had dealings with Heng Jingshua was investigated. Taiyan Academy had never experienced something like this before. Naturally, they felt extremely embarrassed this time and everyone was panicking. Who knew what kind of people Heng Jingshua had killed before he died? Even if it wasn't red blood goo, it could be some other poison. In short, the entire academy was in a mess and Qing Han was also in a terrible fix. He even handed the herb mountain, which he had always meticulously taken care of, to Situ Xingqian. The so-called herb mountain was actually one of the many mountains behind Taiyan Academy. It was only because there were all kinds of precious herbs growing on it that it was called the herb mountain. However, even though the herb mountain was in Taiyan Academy, it belonged to Qing Han. Thus, not to mention the students, even the elders in the academy did not have the right to approach the herb mountain. Situ Xingqian stayed on the herbal mountain for 2 days and realized that something was missing, so she wanted to go back to take it. She walked down the mountain, and when she reached the foot of the mountain, she saw a few familiar figures not far away. They were a few young men and women. Even though they were all wearing the academy's uniform, Situ Xingqian still recognized them at one glance because she had always been on good terms with them. She was about to go up and greet them when she heard her name. "Why haven't I seen Xingqian these past 2 days?" asked one of the young men. Situ Xingqian's lips moved, but before she could speak, she heard another young girl laugh. How can she still have the face to come out now? Situ Xingqian's body suddenly froze as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her head. Almost subconsciously, she took 2 steps back and hid behind a tree. "Xiaoyun, aren't you going overboard with your words? Xingqian didn't do anything wrong. How can you say that about her?" The young man seemed a little angry. "I'm going overboard? Who doesn't know that she won first place in the celestial physician competition because of Chu Liyue's pills? Luckily I didn't go this time. If not, it would have been so embarrassing. I really don't know how she still has the face to come back to the academy, said the other girl with a mocking smile. That's right. I heard them say that Chu Liyue didn't even touch her back then. She failed because she wasn't capable enough. In the end she actually pushed the blame to Chu Liyue, who knew that he would really succeed. He even helped her win first place. If it were me, I wouldn't dare to ask for first place. The young man was so angry that his face flushed red. But Xingqian's talent and abilities are also very good. Who can compare to her when you're talking about her here? Of course we can't compare to her, so we've always listened to her. But this time she embarrassed the entire academy. Can't we be a little unhappy? Zhongling, we know that you like her, but why don't you think about it? Has she ever looked you in the eye? The young man choked and couldn't say anything. Situ Xingqian's standards are very high. So many young talents have proposed to her, but she didn't like any of them. Great, now her reputation is half ruined. Let's see if so many people still like her. Situ Xingqian was so angry that her entire body trembled, and her fingernails dug deep into her palms. Hadn't she suffered enough humiliation during this period of time? I didn't expect these people to talk about her like this. Countless people in Taiyan Academy and even the entire country Xingluo probably think this way. Just as she was thinking of how to deal with these people, she heard one of the girls say, "Oh, right. I heard that Chu Liyue arrived at our academy today." Digression, I feel better after taking the pills. I don't know if it's the side effects, but I feel nauseous the whole morning. Chapter 342. Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. Yeah. I think Tianlu Academy's director, Elder Yi, personally escorted her here. She should have reached the library by now, right? Wasn't she chosen by the Tianling dynasty's envoy? Why is she still here? Who knows? But since she's here, she must have been allowed, right? Have you heard that she lacked a Yuan meridian since she was young? She was born a good-for-nothing, but she suddenly became a genius a few months ago? I really don't know what kind of person Chu Liyue is. She's a genius, but it's a pity that she's engaged to country Yao Chen's Prince Li. That's a medicine pot. I heard that Prince Li is very handsome. Maybe someone likes him? Ah. The few figures gradually disappeared, and their voices gradually disappeared. Situ Xingqian remained silent for a long time, and she even stood until her legs turned numb. She realized that she really couldn't accept everything that had happened. No matter if it was the Qingjiao competition or the engagement between Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue, she pondered for a long time before turning around and returning to the herb mountain. Halfway up the mountain there were a few wooden houses. One of them was specially for her to rest. She entered the house, locked the door, and sat in front of the study table. The rich herbal fragrance filled her nose. This smell always calmed her down in the past, but it only reminded her of that humiliating day now. She sat quietly for a while and took out a letter. This letter was from Rongjin. Before she left the imperial city, Rongjin secretly sent someone to deliver this letter. However, her thoughts were all on Rongxiu back then, so she didn't open it. Now, she stared at the letter for a while before opening it without hesitation. The last rays of the setting sun shone in through the window and dragged Situ Xingqian's shadow very long. A ripple suddenly appeared in the air. A figure walked out, and it was Elder Lian Ning. Eldest princess. A low and hoarse voice sounded in the room. Situ Xingqian then recovered her senses and shifted her gaze away from the letter. She subconsciously put it away before looking at Elder Lian Ning. Situ Xingqian saw that it was him and heaved a sigh of relief. However, her eyes were still filled with shock. Elder Lian Ning sensed that something was wrong with her and couldn't help but ask. "Eldest princess, what happened to you?" His gaze swept past the letter in Situ Xingqian's hands, and his expression froze. "This is... When you went to investigate Chu Liyue, did you find anything?" Situ Xingqian interrupted Elder Lian Ning and asked. Even Elder Ning did not continue to delve into the letter. He only bowed slightly. "We found two things. Firstly, on the 10th of July, Chu Xianmin sent someone to assassinate Chu Liyue. Those people took Chu Liyue out of the imperial capital and wanted to kill her in the forest. However, on that day Chu Liyue did not die. Instead, he returned safely to the Chu family." Situ Xingqian knitted her brows. She had also heard about Chu Xianmin's incident. It was normal for her to secretly kill Chu Liyue in order to become the crown princess. "You think there's something wrong with this?" "Of course. Your Highness, Don't forget that Chu Luiyue was still a good-for-nothing with a damaged Yuan meridian back then. As for the people Chu Xianmin sent, according to my investigation, one of them was a Stage 3 warrior. Situ Xingqian was stunned. Even though a Stage 3 warrior was not considered strong, it was not difficult for him to deal with a girl who had no cultivation. If Chu Luiyue returned alive, then what about the other 3 people? They're dead. A strange smile appeared on Elder Lian Ning's face. Also, it's the kind where no one knows if they're alive or dead. As the 3 people's identities were ordinary, and Chu Xianmin was afraid of being exposed, she purposely suppressed this matter. Hence, their disappearance did not attract anyone's attention. Coincidentally, Chu Luiyue underwent a drastic change from that day onward. After returning to the Chu family, she bought many herbs from Zhenbao Pavilion. Not long after, she was admitted to Tianlu Academy. Everyone knew what happened after that. Many guesses flashed across Situ Xingqian's mind. She hurriedly asked, "What about the second matter?" The second matter is coincidentally related to that forest. You probably don't know that country Yao Chen's 4th princess, Rong Zhen, has gone missing. Situ Xingqian knew about Rong Zhen, but they did not interact much, so she did not have a deep impression of her. Didn't her pearl of essence shatter and she's been recuperating in the palace? Why did she suddenly go missing? Also, there doesn't seem to be any news about this. Even though she returned to Taiyan Academy, she did not cut off contact with the outside world. If Rong Zhen really went missing, such a big matter should have spread. Because Rong Zhen ran out on her own. He had been secretly investigating Chu Luiyue all this time and did not expect to find out something. That day, Chu Luiyue was forcefully taken away from Tianlu Academy by a Stage 5 warrior. I hid my aura and followed them all the way. In the end, I discovered that they went to that forest. I did not follow them in, but not long after, Chu Luiyue came out. After that, people started secretly searching for Rong Zhen's whereabouts in the imperial city. As long as all these things were connected, it was not hard to imagine what happened that day. Situ Xingqian was shocked and only spoke after a while. That means that Chu Luiyue killed Rong Zhen? Elder Lian Ning pondered for a moment. That might not be the case, but after she left, I went into that forest to search, but I didn't find any traces. As for the Empress, she still doesn't dare to make a big fuss about it. Situ Xingqian's eyes sparkled as she softly muttered, "That's so. In that case, Chu Luiyue's actions are really secretive. But there's no such thing as an absolute secret in this world. She probably didn't expect that the things she did were already known by others. What a joke. She has both fame and fortune now, and she even came to our academy's library. Eldest princess, what do you plan to do?" asked Elder Lian Ning. Rong Zhen must have another reason for targeting Chu Luiyue. What do you think? Rong Zhen was doted on in the past. Even if her pearl of essence shattered and she became a useless person, she was still the honorable 4th princess. When did other people have the right to decide her life and death? There hasn't been any news from country Yao Chen, so it's obvious that Emperor Jiawen doesn't know about this. That was his daughter that he doted on the most. If he knew about this, I really don't know how sad he would be, said Situ Xingqian slowly with a tinge of pity on her face. However, her eyes flashed with a cold and vicious light that disappeared in an instant. You're saying, Elder Lian Ning, it's been hard on you during this period. Leave the rest to me. Situ Xingqian took out a pen and paper. I'll tell this to the people who should know about it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 343. Taiyan Academy. Chu Luiyue raised her head slightly and looked at the 5-story library in front of her. The golden words on the signboard shone brightly under the sunlight. This is the library. Elder Emote Song was standing beside Chu Luiyue. Although he did not like Chu Luiyue, Qinghan did not want to see her, so he sent him. 2 young men in academy uniforms standing at the entrance bowed respectfully when they saw the 2 of them. Greetings, Elder Emote Song. Elder Emote Song nodded and looked at Chu Luiyue coldly. For a period of time from now on, you can borrow any of the books here. Come in with me. Chu Luiyue did not mind his attitude and followed him in. As soon as they entered, Chu Luiyue saw that the walls were filled with all kinds of books. There were rows of shelves in the middle and they were also filled with books. She quickly scanned the place. Elder Emote Song stopped in his tracks and turned to look at Chu Luiyue. However, he did not see the shock on her face. He coughed and emphasized, "This is the first floor. There are tens of thousands of books related to cultivation on the first floor." Chu Luiyue nodded calmly. Elder Emote Song was even more displeased. The collection in Tai Yen Academy's library was as vast as the sea. It was rare for an ordinary family to have a few books on martial techniques. Even the aristocratic families would only have a few hundred books at most. However, they had tens of thousands of books here. Chu Luiyue did not react at all after hearing his words. This made Elder Mo Tsang very aggrieved. He could not help but sneer secretly. She was just pretending. I heard that Tianlu Academy has a lot of books too. Although it's not as good as ours, there should be at least a few thousand books, right? He asked casually. Chu Luiyue nodded again. Yes. Many of the books here are not available in our academy. Elder Mo Tsang laughed proudly. Just as he was about to say something, Chu Luiyue continued. Master said that although the academy is big, he would rather leave it empty than leave it for trash. Elder Mo Tsang almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Trash. Did Chu Luiyue know what he was saying? You're saying these are trash? Chu Luiyue smiled. Please don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I'm just saying that a part of this place is you. Elder Mo Tsang suppressed the anger in his heart and shouted in a deep voice. Chu Luiyue, you better be polite. If you continue to speak rudely, we'll chase you out even if you get first place in the Qingjiao competition. Chu Luiyue looked at him sincerely. Elder Mo Tsang, you're overthinking things. I'm not being disrespectful to your academy, but many of the books here are indeed not worth collecting. As she spoke, she walked to the side and casually picked up a book. Tiger Wolf Fist, Intermediate Yellow Grade. The martial techniques that warriors cultivate are divided into 4 levels: Heaven, Earth, Black, and Yellow. Each level is further divided into upper, intermediate, and lower levels. Yellow is the lowest level. Moreover, it's only an intermediate level, so it's not worth mentioning. Normally, martial techniques of this level are meant for Stage 2 warriors, right? Chu Luiyue's lips curled up. But our academy only accepts warriors who are Stage 3 and above. Thus, our academy doesn't have any books like this. Elder Mo Tsang was speechless. Their academy recruited more students than Tianlu Academy, so their standards were naturally not as high as Tianlu Academy's. There were still many Stage 2 warriors in Tai Yen Academy. Apart from that, they were passionate about collecting all kinds of books. They had the most books among the 3 academies and they were proud of it. Why did it sound so cheap when it came from Chu Luiyue's mouth? What do you know? It's not only high-grade martial techniques that are worth collecting. Tai Yen Academy's book collection is all-encompassing. It can be described as complete. Chu Luiyue smiled but did not say anything. If this little library could be considered as complete, then she really didn't know how to describe her private study room in her previous life. Seeing Chu Luiyue's smile, Elder Mo Tsang somehow felt even more uncomfortable. Chu Luiyue did not say anything but he felt inexplicably embarrassed. This is only the first floor. You won't say that when you see the books upstairs. With a flick of his sleeve, he began to walk up the stairs. Chu Luiyue raised his brows slightly. I hope so. Elder Mo Tsang stopped in his tracks. I shouldn't have come if I knew this would happen. Chu Luiyue can anger someone to death with just one mouth. She better not be too presumptuous during this period. Otherwise, I'll definitely teach her a lesson. The 2 of them went up to the 2nd floor. The space here was as big as the 1st floor, but there were fewer books here. Instead, there were some glowing balls of light. These balls of light contain martial arts techniques as well. However, their levels are much higher than the ones below. Elder Mo Tsang's confidence was boosted a little. I don't mind telling you that there are many lost copies here. However, it's up to you whether you can open them or not. The balls of light were corresponding barriers. The higher the level of the item, the stronger the barrier's defensive power. Based on Chu Luiyue's strength, he might not even be able to open a profound-level martial arts technique, let alone others. Chu Luiyue asked in return. Do you mean that I can see all of these? Elder Mo Tsang sneered. As long as you can do it, it's up to you. Chu Luiyue did not seem to notice the mockery in Elder Mo Tsang's voice. A sincere smile appeared on his face. Your academy is really generous. Elder Mo Tsang's heart skipped a beat. He felt that something was amiss. After thinking for a while, he could not figure it out, so he gave up. He raised his hand and pointed upstairs. The 3rd floor is filled with Xian formations. The 4th floor is filled with prescriptions. I still have things to do, so I won't be showing you. You can do whatever you want. He felt that if he continued to stay with Chu Luiyue, he would be so angry that he would fall sick. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She just looked up and asked curiously, Why are you here? Then, what about the 5th floor? Elder Emote Song's expression turned serious. Only the academy head is allowed to enter the 5th floor. Although you can read here for free for a month, that doesn't include the 5th floor. Chu Luiyue nodded. The books on the 4th floor should be enough for you to read. As long as you follow the rules, we won't make things difficult for you. However, if we find out what you're doing here, don't blame us for being rude. Chu Luiyue agreed with a smile. Don't worry. I won't be here for long, so I won't waste my time on other things. Elder Emote Song was relieved. He gave a few more words of advice and left. Soon, Chu Luiyue was the only one left in the library. She looked at the balls of light in front of her. She crossed her arms and tapped her chin with the other. Where should I start? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 344. Elder Emote Song walked out of the library and looked at the 2 guards. Be careful during this period of time. Apart from the 1st floor, all books borrowed from the other floors must be recorded in the book. If there are any abnormalities, inform me as soon as possible. The 2 guards replied respectfully. Yes. Elder Emote Song was slightly relieved and couldn't help but turn around to take a look. The door was closed and everything was peaceful. Although Chu Luiyue's words were harsh, this was Tai Yen Academy after all. She was a smart person and wouldn't cause any trouble for him. But for some reason he felt uneasy. He didn't know where this uneasiness came from, but he felt as if his heart was suspended in mid-air, as if an accident would happen at any time. He frowned and felt that he might be overthinking. He erased the worry in his heart and turned to leave. However, as soon as he left, the 2 guards standing at the door suddenly sensed something and looked at the gray-white stone tablet placed on the right side of the door of the library. At this moment, a line of words suddenly appeared on the stone tablet. Snow Walk, Middle Stage Mystic Stage. After a while, the words on the stone tablet gradually converged and formed a star that shone brightly on the stone tablet. This has already started? One of them asked in bewilderment. How is this possible? She opened a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique. Didn't they say that Chu Luiyue is only a stage 2 warrior now? How can she open a book of this level? The other person immediately denied. But, her strength is comparable to a stage 4 warrior. Logically speaking, she should be able to do it, right? But even a stage 4 warrior needs some time to open a middle stage mystic stage martial arts technique. Elder Emote Song just left, and Chu Luiyue opened it less than 15 minutes ago. How could she do it? Could it be someone else in the library who took it? According to the rules, the students of our academy are not allowed to enter the library unless there are special circumstances. She is the only one in the library now. The 2 of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If their guess was correct, it meant that Chu Luiyue was stronger than they thought. Don't worry. Even if she opened the book quickly, it would still take a lot of time to study. It wasn't like this had never happened before, but usually, those people would only be able to read 100 books at most in a month. Among them, there are only a few who are truly proficient. That's true. Let's record down the first book she borrowed. One of them took out a booklet from his bosom and recorded the words that appeared on the stone tablet. However, before he could finish writing, another person suddenly exclaimed. He looked up in confusion. What's wrong? The man was dumbfounded. His hand, which was pointing at the stone tablet, trembled slightly. That. She has already opened the second book. What? The man in charge of recording hurriedly looked over and saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. Scarlet Flame Chop, Mystic Middle Stage. Another Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. The 2 of them were stunned. The impact of this matter on them was so great that they didn't dare to confirm that it was true for a moment. I'm not seeing things, right? It's Mystic Middle Stage? The man in charge of recording rubbed his eyes. The words had turned into a second star, right next to the first. In other words, these 2 books were of the same level. Chu Luiyue had indeed opened the second Mystic Middle Stage martial skill. How did she do it? She should have only read the beginning of the first book, right? How did she open the second one? Maybe she's just picking a martial skill that she likes, that's why she read it so quickly? That's possible. A cultivator's time and energy are limited. Choosing a suitable book to study carefully might be better than reading 10 books. But even so, the speed at which she opens the books is too fast. If she keeps doing this, impossible. There are barriers on the books. Every time she opens one, she has to use up a portion of her energy. How can she keep doing this? Forget it, let's not worry about this for now. Record down the second book as well. If Elder Emote Song finds out that we missed something, he won't let it go so easily. At this point he suddenly stopped. The two of them exchanged glances again. Given the current situation, if this continued, Elder Emote Song would most likely break down. In the library, Chu Luiyue quickly read through the book in her hands. Then she put it back and shrugged her shoulders in disappointment. Another mystic middle stage. Ever since Elder Emote Song left, she had been staying on the second floor. She randomly picked a bookshelf in the middle and started reading. To her disappointment, she had already browsed through the entire bookshelf, but the best one was only at the middle stage of the profound stage. Most of them were lower stage mystic. Chu Luiyue helplessly walked to another bookshelf. Suddenly she saw a book from the corner of her eye. She focused her eyes on it. Upper yellow stage. Chu Luiyue was shocked. She had thought that the books here were at least mystic stage. She did not expect there to be books of this level. She rubbed her forehead and started to feel that she had been too polite to Elder Emote Song. She continued reading helplessly. This time she really wanted to find a few good books to read and learn some new martial arts techniques. This was because, unlike Xian formations and prescriptions, high-level martial arts techniques were passed down by sections. Under normal circumstances, the martial skills displayed by martial artists could reveal their origins and so on. It was the same for her. There were many high-level martial arts techniques stored in her mind, but they belonged to her in her previous life. Once they were displayed, people would definitely notice that something was wrong. Therefore, although she planned to continue learning these martial arts techniques in secret, she had to choose some new ones at the same time. Although she was a little disappointed, she still read through all the books to avoid wasting them. She had an eidetic memory. Even if she only skimmed through them quickly, she could still remember them clearly. Moreover, because she had once learned high-level martial arts techniques, she could always understand these high-level martial arts techniques very quickly. Chu Luiyue walked along the bookshelf and read one book after another, as if she was constantly throwing books into her mind. One book, another book. Why is she still continuing? The two guards outside the library saw a large patch of starlight gradually lighting up on the grayish-white stone tablet and finally collapsed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 345. Chu Luiyue had only been in the library for a little over 2 hours and she had already read over 100 books. And they were all mystic class martial arts techniques. You stay here and keep watch. I'll go ask Elder Emote Song for instructions. One of them said with a panicked look on his face. Then he quickly left. The remaining person could not help but shout. Then, should I continue recording? He had written more records in the past 2 hours than he had in the past few days. More importantly, if Elder Emote Song saw this booklet, he would be even angrier. The person who was about to leave rubbed his face in frustration. Of course. According to Chu Luiyue's trend, she's going to look through half of the library. Not only did he have to inform Elder Emote Song, but he also had to inform the dean and the other elders as soon as possible. The only thing they could do was to remember how much Chu Luiyue had read. As long as they did their jobs well, the dean and the other elders would not be able to vent their anger on them. However, he was afraid that he would not have an easy time during this period of time. Seeing that the person had left, the remaining person wanted to say something, but he saw another line of words on the stone tablet from the corner of his eye. He could only resign himself to his fate and continue writing in the booklet, groaning inwardly. Was Chu Luiyue even human? Elder Emote Song had just finished his work and was about to lie down to rest when he heard hurried footsteps outside. Elder Emote Song. Elder Emote Song. When he heard the voice, he immediately frowned and walked outside. What's wrong? The man panted as he said, That's right. Elder Emote Song Chu. Chu Luiyue she. He took a deep breath and did not know what to say. Elder Emote Song sneered. She's really restless. Did she cause a ruckus in the library? The man shook his head. No. What's wrong? Elder Emote Song was getting impatient when he saw that the man could not finish his sentence after a long time. Well, you should go and see for yourself. The man said awkwardly. Seeing him like this, Elder Emote Song felt an uneasy feeling in his heart again. There was only Chu Luiyue in the library. Something happened, it must be her doing. But, speaking of which, she was only there to read. What else could she do? In the end he still decided to take a look. He lifted his foot and headed towards the library. The two of them quickly returned to the library. Elder Emote Song raised his head to take a look at the library. After making sure that everything was fine, he felt slightly relieved. What's going on? Wasn't there no problem? The man standing behind him couldn't help but remind him. Elder Emotsang, look over there. Elder Emotsang turned his head to look and his expression froze. On the stone tablet that had always been quiet and plain, countless starlight actually lit up at this moment. The stone tablet was connected to the library. Every book in the library corresponded to the corresponding position on the stone tablet. Every time a book was opened, a notification would appear on the stone tablet. In the end, it would turn into a star. In this way, everything that happened in the library would be clear at a glance. However, Elder Emotsang had never seen so many stars on the stone tablet at the same time. In fact, they had even joined together into a single piece. Is there something wrong with the stone tablet? He subconsciously suppressed that absurd conjecture and asked anxiously. However, the answer given by the two of them made his heart sink to the bottom of the valley. Elder Emotsang, this is the record of the books that Chu Luiwei opened after she entered. The man who had been taking notes said bitterly and handed over the booklet. Elder Emotsang glanced at it and saw that the brand new booklet was already half filled. His eyelids twitched violently. Almost uncontrollably, he stiffly took the booklet and flipped through it a few times. Page by page, line by line, everything was clear and clear. The ink on the latest page was not even dry yet. His lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. His hand that was holding the booklet trembled slightly. Elder Emotsang, ever since you left, Chu Luiwei has been reading rapidly. I don't know how she did it, but the words on the stone tablet kept appearing one after another. This is the result of more than 2 hours of... Wait. Elder Emotsang, she opened another book. The man was explaining carefully when he suddenly saw another line of words appear on the stone tablet. He immediately opened his mouth nervously. Elder Emotsang gritted his teeth and turned to look. The light on the stone tablet was especially dazzling. Crush. He suddenly threw the booklet back into the man's arms and shouted angrily, "You're a traitor. Keep writing. I'd like to see how much Chu Luiwei can read." The man hurriedly opened the booklet again and wrote another line with trembling hands. Elder Emotsang stared at the library as if his gaze could pierce through it and cut Chu Luiwei like a knife. Something was wrong. Something was definitely wrong. Apart from the first floor, most of the books on the other floors had a barrier. Chu Luiwei might be able to open a few books, but how could she keep reading like this? Could it be that her force wouldn't run out? Moreover, even if she could open them easily, how could she read so many books in such a short time? Elder Emotsang, don't worry. Chu Luiwei is reading so quickly. She must be picking the books she likes. She must have thrown the books away after a glance. It's just a bluff. She might not have learned anything at all. Elder Emotsang's mood improved a little when he heard this. In fact, he was thinking the same thing. This was the only reasonable explanation. Greed is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant, he said hatefully. Elder Emotsang, you're right. Chu Luiwei is only in her teens. She just won the Qingjiao competition, so it's natural for her to be arrogant. She won't benefit from doing this. She might not be able to pick anything until the end of the competition. As soon as he finished speaking, the stone tablet suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Elder Emotsang and the other elders looked over in shock and exclaimed, "She found an Earth-grade martial arts technique." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 346. Jingshan Finger, Lower Earth Rank. A line of words appeared clearly on the stone tablet. It was indeed an Earth rank martial arts technique. This? The man in charge of recording looked at Elder Emotsang with his mouth agape. According to the rules, the activation of an Earth rank martial arts technique had to be recorded separately. Furthermore, the dean and all the elders had to be informed. Elder Emotsang's heart was boiling like lava. He didn't know how to vent his anger. All he could do was bellow. Hurry up and record it. Yes. The man hurriedly took out another book and recorded it down with trembling fingers. The person standing behind Elder Emotsang was even more flustered. He tried his best to minimize his presence, not daring to utter another word. He even held his breath. Everyone could see that Elder Emotsang was on the verge of exploding. Anyone who dared to approach him would be in trouble. Elder Emotsang raised his head abruptly and looked at the second floor of the library. Although there were many books in the library, there were only a few books on Earth-rank martial arts techniques. Moreover, they were all hidden very well. How did Chu Luiwei find it? He wanted to rush in and chase Chu Luiwei out, but he could not. In the end, Chu Luiyue was only reading in there. She did nothing else. Even if she was reading at a breakneck speed, it was not her fault. Therefore they could only continue to wait. If Chu Luiyue continued to behave like this, they would have to wait until the time was up for her to come out. Elder Emote Song, Chu Luiyue may have unlocked an earth-rank martial arts technique, but it's not all for nothing. Look, it's been a while, but she hasn't continued to read other books. She must be studying that one. According to the agreement, she can only enter the library to borrow books, but she can't take them out. Therefore she must be spending all her time on that one book. What do you think? The man in charge of recording said cautiously. Elder Emote Song's face darkened. Of course he had thought of that, but it was an earth-rank martial arts technique after all. Now that Chu Luiyue had found him, he felt that he had suffered a great loss. Last year, the student who obtained first place in the Qing Jiao competition didn't manage to obtain an earth-rank martial technique from the other academies. You guys stay here and watch. I'll report this matter to the president. Yes. When Elder Emote Song arrived at Cheng Han's residence, it was already night time. Light seeped through the window of Cheng Han's room. Standing outside the door, Elder Emote Song could vaguely hear the voices of several people talking. He knocked on the door and the voices inside stopped. The door was opened. It was Cheng Han. Under the illumination of the lantern light, his complexion did not look very good. Emote Song? Why are you here? What is it? Elder Emote Song looked over his shoulder. There were two other people in the room. They were the people sent by the other two academies to investigate Heng Jingchua and Yang Jianqing. It seemed like the three of them didn't have a good conversation. Elder Emote Song hurriedly replied. Dean. There is an urgent matter that I need to inform you immediately. Cheng Han was troubled by these two people and didn't know how to get rid of them. Elder Emote Song's arrival came at the right time. He glanced at Elder Emote Song and asked, Elder Emote Song? Is it urgent? Elder Emote Song understood and nodded without hesitation. Cheng Han turned to look at the two people. I'm sorry, but it seems like we have to stop here today. The two people knew that Cheng Han was trying to escape, but they didn't want to expose him, so they got up and left. After they left, Cheng Han let Elder Emote Song into the room and heaved a sigh of relief. Elder Emote Song asked tentatively. Dean, it seems like things aren't going well? Cheng Han was frustrated. Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua are both dead, and there isn't even a corpse left behind. Where am I supposed to find any clues? They've already followed them to the academy, but they still haven't found anything. If they can't find anything, they'll just say that I'm covering for them. Cheng Han felt that he was being wronged. However, the matter had blown up and everyone knew that they were investigating, so he couldn't just chase them out. He rubbed his temples. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. Why are you here? Elder Emote Song's anger had mostly subsided, but it was mostly replaced by uneasiness and anxiety. Before he came, he had been thinking about how to tell the dean about this. Be it the dean or Tai Yen Academy, they had all suffered too much at the hands of Chu Luiyue. This matter would only make things worse. After deliberating for a long time, he finally decided to tell the truth. Chu Luiyue found an earth-grade martial arts technique in the library. Cheng Han's expression froze. Elder Emote Song had already expected this reaction, so he tried to persuade him. Dean, don't worry, which one did she find? Cheng Han asked in an urgent tone. Elder Emote Song thought for a moment and said, I think it's Jingshin Finger? This martial arts technique is earth grade. Crash. Bang. Cheng Han stood up abruptly, and the chair under him toppled over. He grabbed Elder Emote Song's collar. What did you say? Elder Emote Song recounted the matter with difficulty. Earth grade. Fortunately, she has stopped studying this book. Bam. Cheng Han pushed him out of the library. Elder Emote Song staggered a few steps and crashed into the wall. Cheng Han's strength was extremely great. This collision almost cracked his shoulder blade, but he didn't dare to show the slightest bit of dissatisfaction. He rubbed his shoulders, only to see that Cheng Han had already left with large strides. Dean? He was shocked and quickly chased after him. As he chased after Cheng Han, he recalled Cheng Han's reaction. The dean seemed to be particularly concerned about this matter. Even if Chu Luiyue had obtained an earth-grade martial arts technique, the dean's reaction should not have been so intense. He frowned and quickly caught up with Cheng Han. Inside the library, Chu Luiyue sat cross-legged. In front of her, a book floated quietly, flipping page by page. She stared at the words and pictures on the book, imprinting them in her mind. Jingshin Finger. Although it was only earth grade, it was one of the best martial arts techniques in the library. This was a martial arts technique that was related to finger techniques. A martial arts technique of this level was not something that could be mastered in a short period of time, so Chu Luiyue planned to memorize it first and practice it seriously when she had the time. Earth-grade martial arts techniques were something that ordinary cultivators would need to read hundreds of times before they could begin to understand and thousands of times before they could master it. However, Chu Luiyue was different. She had read many martial arts techniques that were more advanced than this one, so it did not take her much effort to read this one. However, when she had read 1/3 of the book, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Why was this Jingxin finger more complicated and obscure than the one she had read before? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 347. She started reading from the beginning with uncertainty and realized that her intuition was right. This Jingxin finger was indeed more exquisite than the finger techniques she had practiced before. It was not obvious at the start, but the feeling became stronger as she read on. Looking at the middle, Chu Luiyue could already imagine what kind of shocking power Jingxin finger would have after successfully cultivating it. Her heart raced uncontrollably, and all the blood in her body seemed to be boiling. If she guessed correctly, this Jingxin finger was definitely at the level of an upper-stage earth-stage martial art. Even in the Tianling dynasty, an upper-stage earth-stage martial art technique was rare. Chu Luiyue really did not expect that such a martial art technique would be hidden in the inconspicuous library of Taiyan Academy. After a short moment of excitement, another question surfaced in Chu Luiyue's mind. Since this Jingxin finger was comparable to an upper-stage earth-stage martial art technique, why was it judged as a lower-stage earth-stage martial art technique? Moreover, the people of Taiyan Academy did not seem to know the true level of this Jingxin finger. Otherwise, they would not have casually placed it on the second floor. Chu Luiyue maintained the doubts in her heart and continued to look behind. When she finished 2/3 of the book, she finally realized something. This martial art technique seemed to be incomplete? Of course, this book looked intact from the outside. There were no gaps and the contents were very coherent. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to tell that there was a problem. However, Chu Luiyue had practiced an earth-stage martial art technique before, so she quickly realized that this Jingxin finger was not the complete version. Chu Luiyue frowned and continued reading. After flipping through this book, she finally confirmed her guess and knew why it was only classified as a lower-stage earth-stage martial art technique. This Jingxin finger was indeed an incomplete martial art technique. If someone practiced according to the instructions in this book, they would still be able to master an earth-stage martial art technique. However, the power that could be used would be greatly reduced compared to its original potential. However, if one could find the missing parts of this Jingxin finger and complete it, it would instantly increase by a few levels. Although a low-level Earth-rank martial skill was precious, it was not worth mentioning when compared to an upper-level Earth-rank martial skill. Now that there was a chance to obtain an Earth-stage upper-level martial skill, Chu Luiyue naturally wouldn't let it go. She looked at the Jingxin finger again, imprinting it deeply into her mind. After that, she stood up and continued searching, hoping to find other things related to the Jingxin finger. Outside the library. Night fell and the sky was completely dark. Cheng Han rushed over from afar and saw that the surroundings were dark. Only the candlelight on the second floor of the Compendium Pavilion was exceptionally clear. His heart felt as if it had been struck by something. Then he quickened his pace and rushed over. The 2 guards in charge of guarding the library saw his figure and immediately saluted in fear and trepidation. "Greetings, Principal." Cheng Han ignored them and immediately looked at the stone tablet beside him. The stone tablet, which had always been dull and plain, was now lit up with a large amount of starlight. Above the vast expanse of starlight, there was an abnormally bright star. Even if all the other stars were added together, they wouldn't be as dazzling as this one. His vision turned black and he staggered, almost falling to the ground. "Principal? What's wrong?" The 2 guards saw that something was wrong with Cheng Han and asked carefully. Cheng Han held his forehead and lowered his head in silence for a while. Only then did he suppress the emotions in his heart and calm himself down. He turned around and hid the trace of panic in his eyes. "How much has Chu Luiyue read now?" "Principal, don't worry. Ever since Chu Luiyue entered, all the books she has read have been recorded. They are all in these 2 booklets. Please take a look." One of them immediately handed the booklets over. Cheng Han took the 2 booklets. Obviously, one was a normal record and the other was a special record of Earth-rank martial skills. He quickly skimmed through the 2 books. In fact, he was no longer interested in the normal record book. Even though it was almost filled with words, it was not as shocking as the lone line of words on the second booklet. His face was like a stiff mask. Although there was no expression on his face, it looked inexplicably unnatural. It was so strange that it sent chills down one's spine. Principal Chu Luiyue read very quickly in the beginning, but ever since she found the Earth rank martial skill, she hasn't done anything. The other person quickly glanced at Ching Han, trying to ease the atmosphere. However, he soon realized that Ching Han's face had turned even uglier. Shut up. Ching Han couldn't take it anymore and threw the booklet at the person who spoke. That person was terrified and immediately knelt down to apologize. Principal, please calm down. Please calm down. Seeing this, the other person felt a chill in his heart and quickly knelt down as well. They had never seen the principal so angry in public. The principal seemed to be angrier than expected about this matter. At this moment, Elder Emotsang finally caught up with them. He saw the two people kneeling on the ground begging for mercy and stopped in his tracks. Even though Ching Han's back was facing him, it wasn't hard to imagine what kind of expression he had. Just as he was hesitating about what to say, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. Phaseless manual, middle stage dark rank. Chu Luiyue started again? He immediately said, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and continue writing." The two people who were kneeling on the ground were shocked. They quickly looked up and saw the words on the stone tablet. Their faces all paled in unison. Didn't Chu Luiyue already open an Earth rank martial skill? Why did she start reading other books? Ching Han also noticed this and immediately looked over. When he saw that it was only a dark rank martial skill, his tense heart relaxed a little. Elder Emotsang walked up to him. Seeing that his expression was less tense, he advised him in a low voice. Earth rank martial skills are difficult to understand. With Chu Luiyue's current level and strength, it would be difficult for her to read through it. It seems that she has given up. Ching Han rubbed his eyebrows. I hope so. However, in the next moment he suddenly thought of something. His eyes widened and he looked at the second floor. What if Chu Luiyue didn't give up? As if to confirm his guess, another line of words appeared on the stone tablet. It was still a dark rank martial skill. The stars on it were still increasing. In other words, Chu Luiyue was still looking for something. Ching Han's heart was filled with fear. Could it be that Chu Luiyue had discovered the secret in the library? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 348. Chu Luiyue seems to be on the second floor. She seems to be more talented as a mystic cultivator and celestial physician. Why isn't she on the third or fourth floor? Elder Emotsang did not notice Ching Han's expression and muttered to himself. This made Ching Han even more worried. That's right. If she doesn't know something, why is Chu Luiyue only on the second floor and not on the other floors? She started reading other books after finding the Earth rank martial skill. She's obviously looking for something. Ching Han could not help but feel anxious. However, he could not rush in and ask Chu Luiyue to stop. The words on the stone tablet continued to appear. Chu Luiyue was still flipping through the books on the second floor at an extraordinary speed. One book, another book. Ching Han stood there motionless. The others did not dare to move and could only wait with him. After a long time, Elder Emotsang finally asked. Dean, Chu Luiyue is going to be in there for a while. You're not going to wait here forever, are you? Ching Han was even more frustrated. Of course he knew. This was what he was most worried about. Previously, he did not expect Chu Luiyue to find the Jingxin finger and even open it to take a look. However, it would be strange if she continued to stay here and would attract more attention. Be careful. Record down all the books that Chu Luiyue borrows. With that, he waved his sleeves and left. Elder Emotsang felt that Ching Han's reaction was strange and could not help but look at the library again. What's the dean worried about? After Ching Han and Elder Emotsang left, only the other two were left to guard the library. Since things had developed to this point, they did not dare to be careless and continued to guard the library. Time ticked by and soon the moon was high in the sky. However, the lights on the second floor were still on. One of them yawned and could not help but grumble. How long is Chu Luiyue going to read? What time is it? Why isn't she asleep yet? The other person was also affected and became tired. Who wouldn't want to be able to enter the book collection pavilion and read as they wish? If it were you, would you be willing to sleep in there? Besides, she had found an Earth rank martial skill. Who knew how excited she was? In any case, if I were to obtain an Earth grade martial skill, I would read it even if I didn't sleep or rest. That may be the case, but everyone needs to rest, right? She's not tired, but I've written so many words today. I'm tired. The two of them waited for a while longer. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had no intention of stopping, they had no choice but to take turns recording. This isn't. Chu Luiyue quickly browsed through another bookshelf, but she still did not find anything. Ever since she discovered Jingxin Finger, she increased her reading speed. Until now, she had already read 1/5 of all the books on the second floor. However, she didn't find anything related to Jingxin Finger. That martial technique scroll was like a lost pearl in the vast sea. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. Perhaps there was only one scroll of Jingxin Finger here. After all, if Taiyin Academy really had the complete version, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Chu Luiyue was about to continue moving forward when Dumpling suddenly appeared in front of her. Its round eyes were filled with obvious disapproval. She was stunned for a moment. Dumpling, what's the matter? Dumpling crossed its paws and placed them under its head. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but burst out laughing. You want me to sleep? Dumpling nodded vigorously. Chu Luiyue shook her head. Don't worry, I'm not sleepy now. She had been thinking about Jingxin Finger and didn't want to rest. Just as she was about to move forward again, Dumpling stopped her again and shook its head frantically. Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly and tapped its head. All right, stop shaking me. I'll go to sleep. Only then was Dumpling satisfied. It pounced on her and rubbed its head against her face. Perhaps because it was too tired, it fell asleep very quickly. The next morning, Chu Luiyue woke up very early and continued following the path that she saw the day before. The two people in charge of recording outside the library had stayed up all night and had obvious dark circles under their eyes. They couldn't even remember when Chu Luiyue ended yesterday. They only realized that Chu Luiyue had started again. The two of them were angry but didn't dare to say anything. They could only accept their fate and continue recording. Cheng Han didn't sleep well the entire night. Even when he woke up in the morning, the frightening images in his mind hadn't dissipated. They were all related to Chu Luiyue. Jingxin Finger. He felt uneasy and planned to take another look at the library. However, he was stopped not long after he walked out. It was still about the people investigating Yang Jianqing and Heng Jingchua. The families of these two people had been brought over and needed to be interrogated by the people from the three academies. Cheng Han had no choice but to leave with them. The matter at the library was temporarily put aside. Country Yao Chen, the palace. The Empress looked at the two people standing in front of her and couldn't help but ask. Is there really no news? The two of them nodded. Her Majesty, we've secretly searched the entire imperial city, but we still haven't found any traces of the fourth princess. The Empress seemed to have lost all her energy as she leaned against the chair dejectedly. It had been a few days, but there was no news of Rong Zhen. These two were from the Xi family. Since they said so, it meant that they really couldn't find her. The Empress closed her eyes weakly. She wanted to ask Si Ting to find out more information from Chu Luiyue, but Si Ting refused. Before she could find a suitable person, Chu Luiyue went to Taiyin Academy. She really had no other choice now. I understand. You can go back first. She waved her hand and asked the two of them to leave. Everyone in the palace knew that they were from the Xi family, and they claimed that they were here to deliver things on behalf of the Xi family. Hence, they naturally couldn't stay for long. After the two of them left, the Empress sat in her seat and didn't speak for a long time. What's bothering you, Empress? Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from the door. The Empress was shocked as she looked up and saw Emperor Jiawen standing there. She was shocked and hurriedly stood up to bow. Greetings, Your Majesty. Emperor Jiawen walked over and helped her up. You don't have to be so polite, Empress. The Empress smiled and looked at the few palace servants at the door as she reprimanded them. His Majesty is here, but none of you reported his arrival. You, Empress, you don't have to be angry at them. I didn't want them to be like this on purpose. Emperor Jiawen shook his head and didn't care. The Empress hurriedly adjusted her expression and smiled. Since Your Majesty has said so, I naturally have no reason to pursue the matter. You haven't been here for a long time and I'm really flattered. Emperor Jiawen said, I've been a little cold to you and your son recently. I heard that you weren't in a good mood recently, so I came to take a look. Alright, I haven't seen Zhenzhen in a long time. Why don't you come with me? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 349. Upon hearing the first half of the sentence, the Empress was still elated, but the second half made her feel worse. She looked up in shock. What? Your Majesty, you want to visit Zhenzhen? Emperor Jiawen stroked his beard and sighed. That's right. Previously she was arrogant and willful, so I purposely ignored her so that she could change. Now that some time has passed, I think she knows her mistake. Besides, I really miss her, so I'm here to visit her with you. Emperor Jiawen had his own considerations. Rong Jin did make a huge mistake, but he received the corresponding punishment. Besides, he was the one who didn't live up to expectations, and the Empress and the rest were implicated. He just wanted them to be more wary of Rong Jin, but he didn't plan on making Rong Jin unable to recover. As for Rong Zhen, she was his favorite daughter in the past, so he couldn't bear to let her go. Hence, after these few days he took the initiative to ask the Empress to visit Rong Zhen. The Empress hesitated. Your Majesty, Rong Zhen hasn't been in a good mood recently, and she's been locking herself in her room. I'm worried that she might do something to offend you if you go. Why don't you wait for her to calm down before visiting her? Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows. Locking herself up and refusing to see anyone? What's wrong with her again? Who provoked her again? The Empress smiled apologetically. You actually know that it's because of Vice Admiral Mu. Previously she had been hoping to get Vice Admiral Mu to help heal her broken pearl of essence, but you know what happened after that? She's very upset because of this. Emperor Jiawen's expression softened. No wonder. He originally wanted to speak up for Rong Zhen, but Mu Qinghe wasn't someone who was easy to talk to. Besides, Rong Zhen had offended him and made him impatient. Hence, it was even more impossible for him to help. Given the current situation, Rong Zhen could only blame herself for being unlucky. I heard that Chu Liwei pleaded for Princess Yongping and got Vice Admiral Mu to invite a celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty to treat Princess Consort Ping Jiang. The Empress lowered her eyes, looking sad. This concubine is truly envious. It's a pity that Jinjin and Chu Liwei had some conflicts back then. Otherwise I really want to ask her for help. Perhaps Jinjin can. As she spoke, she wiped her tears with a handkerchief, as if she was very sad and regretful. However, she kept glancing at Emperor Jiawen from the corner of her eye. What disappointed her was that Emperor Jiawen didn't look angry at all. She felt a little depressed. As a princess, Rong Zhen was treated worse than Chu Liwei and Mu Hongyu. Why was His Majesty not angry at all? However, she didn't know that Emperor Jiawen had been to the Tianling dynasty before and knew how powerful it was. He clearly knew that he and the entire country Yao Chen were nothing but ants in Mu Qinghe's eyes. What Mu Qinghe wanted to do and who he wanted to help was his own business. Who was he to say anything? Emperor Jiawen pondered for a moment and said, "That's right. You can't be blamed for this. In the unseen world, everything had its own destiny. However, she can't go on like this. Forget it. I'll go and take a look myself." The Empress was shocked and she couldn't be bothered to wipe her tears. Your Majesty, I think it's better to let Jinjin calm down for a while, right? You know her personality. The more you force her, the more disobedient she becomes. Emperor Jiawen knitted his brows and stared at the Empress. Empress, you seem to not want me to see Jinjin. This is weird. In the past, the Empress would always think of ways to invite him over. Of course, he knew that the Empress wanted to show his love for Rong Zhen, so he would turn a blind eye most of the time. However, today was really weird. No, I'm just. The Empress retorted without thinking, but she didn't know how to continue. Emperor Jiawen was even more confused. His expression became stern. Since you're not willing to go, I'll go myself. After saying that, he lifted his foot and walked outside. The Empress was completely flustered. If I don't stop His Majesty, the consequences will be unimaginable. She followed him without thinking. At the same time, she kept thinking of reasons in her mind. However, Emperor Jiawen seemed determined to go. Just as she was in a terrible fix, a person rushed over from the opposite direction. Your Majesty. Urgent report. Emperor Jiawen finally stopped and asked with knitted brows, "What urgent report? Why is it so urgent?" The person presented a wooden box with both hands. Your Majesty, you'll know when you read it yourself. Emperor Jiawen glanced at the wooden box, and his expression turned serious. This is the box that country Xing Luo's emperor used to communicate with him secretly, so it must contain the other party's secret letter. Why is there news at this time? The Empress took a look and recognized what it was. She was elated. This is indeed an urgent report, and His Majesty will definitely deal with this first. No matter how urgent Rong Zhen's matter is, it can't be more important than the country's matters. As expected, Emperor Jiawen held the wooden box in his hands and glanced at the Empress. We'll end it here today. I'll go and see Rongzhen after I settle this. The Empress couldn't ask for more. Don't worry, Your Majesty. I'll personally visit Xinjin later and patiently counsel her. Emperor Jiawen felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't care less now. Return to the imperial study. Eunuch Min flicked his horsetail whisk. Set up the imperial study. The group of people left in a grandiose manner. The Empress only heaved a sigh of relief when their figures disappeared in front of her. However, she knew that she had to find Rongzhen as soon as possible. His Majesty already has suspicions and he will definitely continue. If he finds out that Rongzhen is missing, the Empress didn't dare to imagine it. She stood rooted to the ground for a while before deciding to act until the end. Let's go to the fourth princess. On the other end, Emperor Jiawen returned to the imperial study. After confirming that the surroundings were heavily guarded, he finally opened the wooden box. There was a snow-white letter inside and there weren't any words on it. However, he didn't look shocked. Instead, he habitually opened it and picked up the brush at the side. He dipped the brush into the ink slab and drew a line on the paper. Then he drew a second line, a third line, until the end he used ink to cover the entire paper. At first glance, there was only a black blob of ink on the paper. But very quickly white words started to appear under the blob of ink. After about a quarter of an hour, the contents of the scroll were finally revealed. Emperor Jiawen read it, and shock flashed across his eyes. Then, as if he wasn't sure, he moved closer and seriously checked every word again. He stared at the paper and kept quiet for a long time until the words on it completely disappeared. Summon the Crown Prince. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.